I said you better watch what you're doing, 'cause I ain't gonna stop when I'm moving. I'm headed to the top, I'ma do it. I'm headed to the top, I'ma prove it. And I could go all night, I'm sick of being nothing. All right, I'm gonna be something. I'll fight with every breath, trust me. I'ma be the one at the top, you can't touch me. I bleed with every word coming. I would rather die than be someone who's nothing. I'm the type of dude who will not remain nameless. I'm the type of dude who is headed for greatness. I'm the type of dude who could really make changes, 'cause I'm the type of dude that's becoming contagious. I'm the type of dude that will always be ageless. I'm the type of dude that will always feel shameless. I'm the type of dude that they say is fucking heinous, 'cause I'm the type of dude that you know is fucking dangerous.
You are absolutely right. The way he went about it was absolutely wrong. Like, so,
And
like I
that's
said,
the
I'm not.
extent of my Jewish hatred that actually goes. Other than the fact that why are y'all popping out of the sewers in New York City?
Annunciation Catholic Church. You couldn't call it pronounced Catholic Church?
Yeah, pronounce the cat.
Can you hold this real quick?
Sure. Do you think I'm fucking stupid or something?
Yes. You know that saying you can't be pretty and smart?
I'm both.
Catch. You're so pretty. Okay, I have a really big problem. Okay. My wife is getting too hot. She's getting hotter by the day, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. Catch.
I'm gonna fuck you up.
Can you hold this real quick?
Sure.
I love tormenting my wife like that sometimes. It's a lot of fun. Oh my god, I'm knocking things over here. Look at this. All right. So, like I said, there's a few I wanted to bring to you to get to you guys this weekend. I don't have the day off. I do have the day off. I gotta go take my wife over to the doctor later on today. So I just figured, why the hell not? I'll just get a little bit of an early jump for you guys. What up, Muffin? How you doing? But yeah, this is immigration policy by court order. The adverse effects of Plyler versus Doe. Basically, what they're going to be questioning about is how the fuck these lower court judges think they can put any kind of limitation on the president as far as immigration goes. Might be a good one. Might learn something. I doubt Dems will have any real other argument other than Orange Man bad, but hey, we've heard a few where they do, so let's see.
Everybody good? The subcommittee will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. We welcome everyone to
And
today's
yes,
hearing on
we
the
are
adverse
at
effects of
1.5.
Plyler v. Doe. I will now recognize myself for an opening statement. In 1975, Texas took a bold stand against illegal immigration after experiencing the adverse consequences of illegal immigration in its classrooms firsthand, recognizing the federal government wasn't doing enough to secure our borders. That same year, Texas passed a law to prevent illegal alien minors from crowding its K-12 public schools, prioritizing American students based on the belief that limited resources should benefit those with legal status, a point underscored by federal inaction. The law was challenged and eventually made its way to the Supreme Court in 1982, where 5 Supreme Court justices declared that Texas and every state in the union is constitutionally required to offer free public education to illegal alien minors. The case was called Plyler v. Doe. It's time for it to go. Without even a head fake towards the original meaning of the 14th Amendment or the court's Equal Protection Clause, case law, the Plyler majority...
Oh, wait, I was wrong. This one is about education to illegal immigrants. Hope he is out of office next election. Fuck Roy. What'd he do to you?
held that American citizens must subsidize education
They're all
of minors
starting to
who
go
are
to
in our
shit,
country
ain't they?
illegally. At the outset, Plyler is constitutionally indefensible, having no basis in law or even common sense. The court's majority relied on 2 key premises. First, that illegal alien minors are not responsible for their immigration status, and second, that mandatory free education for illegal aliens does not burden states. The court referenced the Equal Protection Clause, a provision in the 14th Amendment
does
that
it
prohibits
not
states from denying
burden
any person
states?
within their jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. The 5-justice majority set aside every conventional tool of constitutional interpretation and simply wished a new right into existence by legislating from the bench using the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment as justification. It is absurd to claim that the drafters of the 14th Amendment understood to guarantee public benefits to individuals who have no right to be in the country and whose very presence is a violation of American law. Plyler gets the constitutional basics wrong about what constitutes a right under the Equal Protection Clause. The 14th Amendment states that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. By definition, illegal aliens, including those who are minors, are trespassers to the nation, as they enter or overstayed without the consent of the American people, which makes them persons outside of the jurisdiction of the United States. Immigration, legal or illegal, is not a fundamental right. Congress establishes which aliens, how many of which, under what circumstances, if any, are allowed to enter and determines what they are entitled to once they are within our borders. Similarly, accessing public education is not a fundamental right, explicitly or implicitly guaranteed by the Constitution under the Equal Protection Clause. In other words, the Supreme Court majority in Plyler based part of its ruling on a misguided premise that unchecked immigration and education somehow mandated by the 14th Amendment. Just as important, the court's majority claimed that the number of illegal aliens in public schools in Texas was small, and that there was no evidence in the record suggesting that illegal entrants impose any significant burden on the state's economy. That premise fails on two fronts. First, any amount of illegal immigration in our hospitals, jails, schools, or elsewhere should not be tolerated and definitely represents a significant burden on taxpayers. And second, states should have the ability to curb it. Texas' experience with the negative impacts of illegal immigration in its classrooms since the 1970s, requiring state funds from law-abiding residents, exemplifies why states should have legislative options to address these costs. Moreover, and fundamental to the issue at hand, the facts surrounding illegal immigration to Texas and nationwide have worsened since 1982. For starters, our nation's illegal alien population was roughly around 3 million in 1982, has skyrocketed to an estimated 15 to 20 million last year, meaning we have 5 times the number of illegal aliens we had 40 years ago. As of 2025, Texas had more than 2.7 million illegal aliens residing across the state, draining public resources and services. So what's to blame for the surge of immigration lawbreakers? Up until President Trump returned to office, the federal government had refused to take seriously its most basic responsibility of securing our borders. The federal government has also issued more amnesties, both at the congressional and executive branch levels, that have shielded millions from deportation, incentivizing more of the same lawless behavior. At the state level, we've seen localities issue more magnets that attract illegal immigration, not fewer, such as offering taxpayer-subsidized benefits to illegal aliens. More recently, we've had activist judges strike down legally sound policies aimed at putting Americans first. By any objective measure, the America we live in today, with an exponential growing significant burden on local resources and failed federal immigration policies, demonstrates that the effects of the Plyler decision have become worse since 1982. To add to the problem of illegal aliens in our schools, we've been met with unaccompanied alien minors who have traveled across the globe due to failed policies under the previous administration and under other democratic regimes, are ordered to be released into the interior thanks to exploited laws. Over the last decade, more than 700,000 unaccompanied minors have crossed the border illegally, which, by the way, endangers the children, in addition to providing a burden on our schools and on our systems in the state of Texas. American taxpayers provide free public education to every single UAC enrolled in a public school. And I can tell you firsthand in Texas the burden that is placed on the people of Texas, the taxpayers of Texas, our local jurisdictions, because of these failed policies, and because of a Supreme Court ruling that we have no business continuing to operate under. In Cleveland, Texas ISD, where once 40% of its 3,500 students were Hispanic, today 90% of its 10,800 students are Hispanic, many of whom do not speak English. This has led district to hire foreign-born teachers through specialist work visas to teach ESL classes to immigrant students. Student enrollment in Cleveland ISD is set to double this year, with a projected price tag of $1.2 billion over the next decade.
Holy
a public
shit.
school in Houston, named Las Americas Newcomer Middle School, started a semester with 150 immigrant and refugee students, and the following year it was 325. Principal Maria Moreno said of the situation, "It's put a burden on me because I've run out of space. I can't handle them. They're going next door to another school." Since 2015, over 98,000 unaccompanied alien children have been released as sponsors in Texas, adding more illegal alien minors to our schools. Based on Texas' average per pupil spending of $13,900, just 1 year of public education of these alien children cost Texans $1.3 billion. Nationwide, the cost to help alien school children, legal immigrant minors, and refugees learn English through limited English proficiency programs in American schools is $78 billion annually, according to a 2022 study. All the while, the American taxpayers left with a bill to pay for the education. The financial costs of Plyler are undoubtedly staggering, clearly representing a significant burden on localities. But it isn't just fiscal costs we should be worried about. Our nation's classrooms routinely deal with illegal alien students, many of whom know little to no English, and may struggle with other learning disabilities. For example, a 2017 study by the Annie Cassie Foundation revealed that immigrant children, legal or illegal, had lower reading and math proficiency scores compared to their American board classmates. The study found that among fourth grade children from immigrant families, only 8% scored at or above the proficiency level. In math, proficiency rates are even worse. Such data should prompt a broader discussion about the demands placed on schools and educators who must use limited resources meant for American students by American taxpayers to help immigrant children achieve proficiency standards. In the small community of Charleroi, Pennsylvania. Did I pronounce that right?
I mean, fuck yeah, they all gotta go.
It's Pennsylvania. So
Kids are not. I'm not gonna play those games
influx
anymore.
of illegal alien Haitians led to a complete disruption of the educational environment. In the 2021 school year alone, the number of non-English speaking students skyrocketed from 12 to 220 in a district of only 1,450 students. Teachers had to pause in the middle of lessons to translate using phone apps, leaving one wondering if she was hindering the learning of American students. Today, the small industrial town spends $400,000 annually on 5 staff members dedicated to non-English speaking aliens. Similarly, in a single year, Maryland saw more than 2,200 unaccompanied minors arrive, posing burdens on the school administrators. In Miami-Dade County, in public schools reporting spending $1,959 more per child for immigrant children and are reliant on community partnerships. I could go on with examples of this absurdity across the country. Ironically, writing for the majority opinion for Plyler, Justice Brennan wrote that such policies allowing illegal aliens access to public schools could likely lead to, quote, the creation and perpetuation of a subclass of illiterates within our boundaries, surely adding to the problems and costs of unemployment, welfare, and crime. Fast forward 40 years, the American students, teachers, and taxpayers are living with the unmitigated consequences of that ruling. State governments and Congress have restricted illegal aliens from accessing SNAP, Medicaid, in-state tuition, among other benefits in the past. It can certainly deny access to their public classrooms. Unelected federal judges should not interfere with rulings based on personal policy preferences not rooted in the Constitution. In fact, my legislation, H.R. 6225, the PAUSE Act, would freeze immigration until the federal government fixes long-standing illegal immigration problems ranging from birthright citizenship to issues such as the one we're discussing today under Plyler v. Doe. It's time we meet the moment to overturn Plyler v. Doe. It's time for Congress and the courts to address the glaring failures of this court decision and finally alleviate Texans and Americans alike from this burden. And with that, I will recognize the ranking member for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 50 years ago, Texas passed a law seeking to ban children who were not legally admitted to the country from our public schools and to defund their education.
Okay.
The state argued that this ban was necessary to preserve its resources for educating its lawful residents and argued that these children were not persons under our Constitution. The Supreme Court disagreed. In 1982, the court struck down the Texas
Oh
statute.
my God, they
Plyler
said
versus
they
Doe,
weren't
rejecting
persons.
the argument that children did not count as persons entitled to equal protection under the 14th Amendment. The court also found Texas's economic arguments to be unconvincing, and the exclusion of undocumented children from public schools an unlikely and ineffective way to achieve the true underlying objective of addressing and ultimately repelling an influx of undocumented immigrants. Even conservative Chief Justice Berger, while rejecting the majority's reasoning, wrote, quote, "It is senseless for an enlightened society to deprive any children, including illegal aliens, of an elementary education," end quote, and agreed
Now
that,
you're making an
quote,
argument.
"It would be folly and wrong to tolerate
But it
creation of a
shouldn't be
segment
on
of
my
society
dime
made
to
up of
pay for
illiterate
somebody
persons."
who shouldn't
He
be
also
here.
noted that, quote, "The long-range cost of excluding any children
Regardless.
from our public schools may well outweigh the costs of educating them," end quote. For a generation, the issue was deemed settled.
Just because
They
you
became
have a
bad ideas
bleeding
die hard.
pussy all over the
Now,
place
at the urging
doesn't
of the
mean
Trump
my
White House, the
taxpayer
authors of
dollars
Project
need to go
2025 and
wasted
their
be
allies,
for
Texas
people
and a few
who
other
shouldn't
states,
be here.
once again, to enshrine
There's
bigotry
no
and bad
argument
ideas
for
in
it.
the law. To do so, they've mounted a coordinated effort to overturn Plyler versus Doe, making the same arguments that the court previously rejected. But if anything, the intervening years have put to rest the argument that the public education of undocumented children imposes a net economic burden upon the states, or somehow harms public education and services offered to lawful residents. In fact, the overwhelming majority of credible studies from both conservative and mainstream entities, including the Congressional Budget Office, have consistently found that the net economic impact of immigration is overwhelmingly positive. Most recently, the Congressional Budget Office issued a finding that immigrants, including
What up,
undocumented
Michael?
immigrants, generated
Look at
a
her CCP handler in the back
14.5 trillion,
smiling.
that's trillion with a
Yeah.
T, fiscal surplus
Dude,
over the
he-
last 20 years.
he has that look on his
When
face
one
no matter
compares
fucking what.
Tax contributions of those
I have
immigrants to
never
the
seen him
limited,
not
very limited
have
public,
that look.
benefits that they consume. Even in Texas, the purported subject of this hearing, the net fiscal impact of immigration during the 40-year Plyler period, including the
Oh,
cost
yeah,
of public
everybody.
education,
Every
has a net
single
of
human
$93
deserves
billion
health care,
to the
right?
benefit of the state. In
Off
addition,
your
we now have
dollar.
decades of data showing the public health, developmental, civic, humanitarian, and social impact of providing public education to immigrant children regardless of their legal status. No matter the rhetoric coming from the other side of the aisle, the fact is that our Republican colleagues have brought us here today to advocate for kicking kids out of school. Reversing Plyler versus Doe would mean that children as young as kindergarten and through high school would be denied a basic education, left out of society, and held back from reaching their potential and meaningfully contributing to America. This isn't just terrible education policy. It's extremely harmful to vulnerable children. It's also bad for our country's health, workforce, and economy. The Supreme Court's decision in Plyler versus Doe guaranteed equal access to free public K-12 education for all children living in the United States, regardless of their immigration status. The court recognized in Plyler that education provides the basic tools by which individuals might lead economically productive lives to the benefit of us all. And in the 44 years since, the children who've benefited from these protections, including some who have since become citizens and legal permanent residents, have grown up to contribute immensely to our country. A report by FWD.US found that Plyler beneficiaries have driven economic growth by paying over $633 billion more in state and local taxes than their public education's cost, preventing over 700,000 U.S. citizen children from falling into poverty, increasing GDP by $2.71 trillion over their lifetimes. These are, again, the accomplishments of the Plyler beneficiaries. They've strengthened the workforce with over 1 million people filling U.S. jobs, and they've reduced healthcare costs by at least $28 billion since 1982. Additionally, other students have found that having immigrant children
And
in
they've
K-12
taken
classrooms
more.
improved
Why
the
don't
academic
you
outcomes
ever
for their
fucking
US-born
realize that?
classmates, lifting up entire communities. Public schools are a crucial
Why
part of our
don't you
social fabric.
try
They're places
to
where kids can
fucking
learn,
even
make
understand?
friends, dream about their
Oh,
futures,
yeah, that's right.
and develop the
You
skills
know
they
that
need to
shit.
contribute to those futures and our society. Robbing some children
You're
of that
just here to
foundation would
fucking
wind up
take
hurting
my money
all
from me,
children
bitch.
and America as a whole. It's a cruel attempt to senselessly punish undocumented children for their parents' decisions, choices they had no role in. And it's all based on a false assertion that giving undocumented children a public education is a burden on taxpayers. It bears dangerous similarity to other attempts to exclude children, including children with disabilities, from public education. According to a June 2025 analysis from Niskanen Center, the tax revenue from undocumented workers alone covers the annual cost of educating undocumented children. Of course, the effort is part of an ill-conceived effort to end immigration to this country, a country that is famously one formed by immigrants. But it's also part of a larger war on children being prosecuted by this White House. A right-wing effort to kick kids out of school is just another facet in the ongoing war that is being waged against American children.
We're seriously
particularly
doing
the
this,
effort
right?
to undermine public education. President Trump and congressional Republicans' One Big Ugly Bill ripped healthcare and food away from millions of kids when enacting the biggest cuts to Medicaid, CHIP, and SNAP in our history. This administration is attempting to undermine and erode vaccine science at a time when measles and other preventable infectious disease outbreaks have killed American children. And Republicans have made callous cuts to childhood cancer research, denying families the hope of a cure. This administration has decimated the Department of Education, gone after funding for early childhood education programs like Head Start, frozen access to billions of dollars in funding for child care
By
and family
removing the
assistance, and
illegals
cut
on
funding
these?
for community violence prevention. ICE is now targeting schools, previously protected areas, in its cruel, chaotic mass deportation efforts, leading to plummeting attendance and fear among entire school communities. Children have been detained in traumatizing conditions and used as bait by immigration enforcement agents to lure their parents.
Straight up
Some of us
fucking
may remember growing up
lies.
and learning about when in the Bible
Holy
Jesus said, "Suffer
shit.
little children to come to me," rejecting the
I
efforts
mean,
of
I
his
know you're
disciples to punish
blatant
their
with
parents'
it,
efforts.
but
Right
god
now, instead of
damn.
caring for the little children, our country and its leaders are shamefully turning their backs on those little children. We must firmly reject a worldview that only certain classes of children, those whose parents can afford to pay, are entitled to the blessings of liberty and the hope of a better future. Our kids are our future, and I want to do all we can to make sure that that future is a bright one for everyone's sake. So this is not the direction that we need to go back here. It's fundamentally flawed. I yield back.
Thank the ranking member. I believe for the sake of time, the chairman is going to yield.
That
and,
was
will recognize
openly
the, ranking member of the full
blatant
committee
even
to
for
address.
her.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman, and thanks
Holy
to Mr. for being here,
shit.
and thanks for these wonderful kids in the front row who are keeping me very entertained. I wanted to start by invoking Tom Paine, who was an undocumented immigrant who came to this land in 1774, 2 years before the Revolution, and wrote Common Sense, the pamphlet
should
that
be in the
ignited
country they
American
came
Revolution.
from.
And he said
What up, Bruce?
that this land, if it lives up to its
They
ideals
wouldn't be
and its
here in
promise,
that
would become an
situation,
asylum
dumbass.
to
Yes.
humanity. He said, not an insane asylum, but a place of refuge for people seeking freedom from religious and political, intellectual, and economic persecution from all over the world. Also in the 18th century, Thomas Jefferson, who was a descendant of a long line of undocumented immigrants, both on his mother's side and his father's side to the country, said that education would be central to democratic self-government and to the protection of
Well, I
liberty.
hope you're
in our
feeling
country.
better,
He said
man.
the nation cannot be both ignorant and free. He said it was an impossibility. In the 20th century, the Supreme Court affirmed that public education is a constitutional commitment in America for all children who are here. In Plyler versus Doe, the court held that denying children access to a public education based on their immigration status would violate the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. Writing for the majority, Justice Brennan found that excluding undocumented children from public education would impose a lifetime of hardship. He
The
said
speech
something
and
like
debate
what
clause
the
lets them
Constitution
get
calls
away
the
with
taint of
over
blood,
lying.
or a
I'd
bill
love
of
to see
attainder,
some
a
reform to
hereditary
that.
punishment
It'll
for
never
something
happen.
over which
No,
the
because
child
it's written
had
into the
absolutely
Constitution.
no control.
You need a convention of states.
Plyler did not place an undue financial burden on America.
And you
Rather,
think
it
you're
paid
gonna-
big dividends
they're gonna
for our
vote to
country.
take
A recent
away their
analysis
own fucking
measured the
ability
cost
to
and
lie to
benefits
everybody?
of this decision and
No,
found that
that's
children
not gonna
who were
happen
able to go to
either.
school, thanks to Plyler, have contributed to the tune of billions of dollars more in state and local income taxes than the costs of their education. And of course, their classes were going to be happening anyway. Plyler has strengthened the workforce by allowing 3/4 of adults who got an education, thanks to Plyler, to work in occupations that
up,
require
fanboy?
a high school degree. And it's also improved public health by making sure that every child in America gets the appropriate vaccinations. So is there anyone who really thinks that America would be stronger as a country if all of the kids who got an education because of Plyler versus Doe had been forced to stay home or to stay in the streets during the day when their parents were working? Well, in order to distract America from the Iraq
I mean, it
War,
shouldn't have happened in the
which is
first
now
place
costing
because that
between
made it
$1 and $2
comfortable and
billion a
able
day,
for them
and which has already
to
cost
stay here,
13
though.
Americans their lives.
What the fuck are you
and more
talking
than
about?
1,000 Iranians their lives, including 175 school children who perished in a bomb explosion at an all-girls school. In order to distract America from the Trump administration's massive cover-up of the Epstein files and the billion-dollar global trafficking conspiracy of young women, teenage girls, and children, our colleagues want to revisit a 44-year-old Supreme Court decision with the aim of kicking tens of thousands of kids out of their classes and out of their schools. Well, the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign is already succeeding in denying kids, both non-citizens and citizens alike, access to school and education. In a survey of 693 educators across the country, when asked whether federal immigration enforcement efforts were affecting students, 24% reported reduced student attendance at school and increased distraction or disengagement in class. 18% said reduced attendance is leading to declining student performance, of course, and 50% stated that the children in their schools have expressed great anxiety and fear about what's taking place in their communities. The harm is not concentrated solely in the cities
because
most
they
under
know
siege
they're not
either.
supposed to be
West
in
of the
this
Twin Cities,
country
in
and they're
Wilmar,
not
Arizona,
going to
more than
school
1
where
in
they
4
might
students
be
started
picked
missing
up.
classes after one student with legal residency was detained and held in custody for several days, and another student who's a U.S. citizen
Or
was
just
stopped by ICE
retarded little
outside the
kids
district
from
learning center.
retarded parents.
The school superintendent said, quote, families of our black and brown students feared profiling and family separation, even as legal residents. White families reported keeping children home due to
I love this. This NBC News one. Chicago teachers say immigration enforcement near schools is scaring and disrupting class. Okay, cool. Let's talk about that because y'all remember when on this channel we brought up that there wasn't a single goddamn child in 30 fucking districts. 25 of which came from the Chicago area. Not a single fucking child could read at grade level nor do math at grade level. 20 fucking, it was over fucking whelming. It was like 24, 25 of these motherfuckers came from the Chicago area alone. So you're going to sit there and tell me it's scaring kids and disrupting class to see people be arrested? No, it doesn't. I mean, it'll disrupt class because kids will get up and watch that shit, but we're talking about Chicago, bitch. That ain't scaring kids. They see it on a daily basis. They've probably had the cops kick in their front fucking door. What are we talking about here? You got kids who are, since fucking COVID happened, these motherfuckers can't read or write at grade level. Not a single fucking child in 25 of your fucking schools can read or write at grade fucking level. Yet here we are saying they're scaring kids to see everything they see on the streets on a daily fucking basis. What?
Anxieties about potential armed law enforcement activity taking place inside the schools. And even when kids are showing up, immigration enforcement actions are dramatically affecting academic performance. Using data from a large urban school district in Florida, one of the 10 biggest in the country, researchers found that the recent surge reduced test scores for both U.S.-born and foreign-born Spanish-speaking students, especially in higher poverty areas. It is hard to study, to learn, to think, to do homework, or to take exams when you are filled with fear and dread and anxiety. This reign of terror is part of the administration's relentless campaign against children right now. In July last year, Trump signed into law his big, beautiful bill, which included the largest cuts to Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, in our history. Over 37 million children rely on Medicaid and CHIP to get health care, and nearly 50 million children rely on SNAP to get adequate nutrition. While denying children access to health care, the administration is also making it harder for kids to stay healthy in the first place. After a confirmed 2,144 measles cases across 44 states in 2025, the U.S. stands to lose its measles-free designation. With this self-inflicted wound administered by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the country is already on track to soar past last year's total measles cases, with more than 1,300 cases across 31 states already confirmed as of March 12th. And of course, Mr. Chairman, Texas has been particularly hard hit.
Well, let me ask you a question, little fag boy there. If you didn't bring all these people in illegally and let them cross the border unvetted, unvaccinated from every fucking thing, even though we were forced to get vaccines, you let the illegals in here and they didn't have to. You let immigrants in here legally that didn't get that shit. So you wonder why measles, mumps, rubella, and even the fucking Black Plague is returning. Fuck, I don't know. Maybe they're coming from countries that actually have that have never gotten off those fucking things, that have never rid their population of those diseases. Maybe, just maybe, from a country that was protected, because the only way you could get in is if you were vaccinated from all that shit. Maybe, just maybe, a country that was protected from that shit because everybody that came in had to be vaccinated from that shit, whether they were here just to visit or whatever. Now you just let them come on in. What do you think a fucking population that hasn't had a dealing with fucking Black Plague in fucking, what, 50, 60 years now? The last case, it's starting to show the fuck back up again. You wonder fucking why, right? You're sitting there yelling and crying about how all these new diseases are starting to pop back up in this country. In fact, boy, it was you that let them the fuck in. Stop playing games and being a disgusting little piece of shit Weasley motherfucker. I know that. I know you are, and then I know that's who the fuck you are. I'm speaking to the goddamn core of your humanity, faggot. You let a fucking disease get into this fucking country just to play political fucking games so you get power over my life. I think that's biological warfare, would that not be? Holy fuck.
The Secretary of Health and Human Services fired all 17 members of its advisory committee.
Wait, did I just find something on Raskin?
Which provides recommendations for immunization in the U.S. and dropped the number of recommended routine childhood vaccines, putting children again at risk of contracting preventable diseases. The administration has gutted the Department of Education, which ensures nearly 26 million low-income students and 7.5 million students with disabilities get meaningful.
This motherfucker has been the hardest for me to pin down. This motherfucker has always been some Weasley fucking reason for me to say that treason does not apply. I got your fucking treason right there. You advocated for and allowed and signed bills to let illegals come in here unvaccinated and unvetted. That was biological fucking warfare, seeing as how we're seeing the Black Plague come back here in the United States. Biological warfare, motherfucker. I got your ass. That's why it says living war against instead of picking up arms.
For access to educational opportunity and has repeatedly threatened funding for Head Start, which provides childcare and early education
see how easy
to millions
it
of
is?
low-income children every year. I would urge our colleagues to abandon this determination to make life harder for children in our country and instead join us in passing policy to deliver for America's kids. Together, we can make the child tax
I feel good
credit
about
permanent
myself
instead
on
of
that
making
one. Holy
tax cuts
shit.
permanent for the nation's billionaires. We
The
could
more I
expand
think
access
about
to
that, the
healthcare
more
and
that
support
I think
for
that would
nutrition for
apply.
kids in need. We could protect the Department of Education to make sure kids in America get equal access to a quality education. We could take action to once and for all address the leading cause of death for children under 18 in the United States, the epidemic of gun violence in our country. For more than a decade now, Americans have strongly supported common sense gun safety reform to ensure that guns stay out of hands of the people who do the most harm. Yet no matter how many children lose their lives to gun violence, our colleagues maintain their oath to the gun lobby and the absolute myth that the Second Amendment prevents reasonable gun safety legislation. It does not. The Democrats on this committee take supporting and protecting every child in America seriously. I hope our colleagues will join us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank the ranking member. I remind people this is a hearing on Plyler v. Doe. Now, without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. We will now introduce today's witnesses. Ms. Mann.
I was just curious. The ranking member said, I think his opening sentence was, he said Thomas Paine was an illegal immigrant. My understanding was Mr. Paine was born in the UK, came to America, then a British colony in 1774. So I was just struggling to figure out how he was.
Oh, I didn't say he was an illegal immigrant. I said he was an undocumented immigrant.
Oh my
just like
God.
Thomas Jefferson's family was. Most of our ancestors did not arrive here with documents.
Okay, well, okay, big deal. Okay.
Well, it does appear to be
You're
a big
a
deal to people on your side.
fucking
You don't want
retard.
to educate kids because they don't have the right documents.
It's the time of the chairman's.
Holy shit.
Going to yield back.
Holy
I would just
shit.
say it's not undocumented because he was within the colonies of England. He was a citizen of England. All right. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. We will now introduce today's witnesses. Ms. Mandy Drogan. Ms. Drogan.
Goddamn you motherfucking faggot. He was a citizen of England when the colonies were still under English fucking rule. The United States of America did not exist at that point in time. So how would they have documents to prove that they are United States citizens when the United States did not fucking exist? Holy shit, why are you so fucking retarded?
Is a senior fellow with the Government Reform and Oversight Coalition at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Her work focuses on K-12 education. She previously worked at the
I
American
missed that.
Federation
I must have
for
been
Children.
running my mouth.
Mr. Matt O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien is Deputy Executive Director of the Federation for American Immigration Reform. He previously served as an Assistant Chief Immigration Judge, Chief of the National Security Division of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, and in other senior roles in USCIS, ICE, and what was then known as the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Mr. James Rogers. Mr. Rogers is Senior Counsel at the American First Legal Foundation, where he litigates matters involving border security, election integrity, parental rights, and constitutional administrative law. He previously served as Senior Litigation Counsel in the Arizona Attorney General's Solicitor General's Office. Mr. Thomas Sines. Mr. Sines is the President and General Counsel of the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. He previously served as counsel to then Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. We thank our witnesses for appearing today and will begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you. You may be seated. Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes. Ms. Drogan, you may begin, and I will remind each of you to turn your microphones on before you begin your testimony. Ms. Drogan, you may begin. You have 5 minutes.
Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on the adverse effects of Plyler v. Doe and how subsequent federal policy, particularly the Obama administration's Dear Colleague letter, has created a contradiction harming students, schools, and communities. Plyler v. Doe held that states cannot deny illegal immigrant children access to public education. Texas has fulfilled that obligation. Our Constitution requires a free public education system, and Texas has built one of the nation's most robust accountability systems in the nation. Our A through F accountability system evaluates schools based on standardized test performance, graduation rates, and college readiness indicators. These ratings have real consequences. They can trigger state interventions, leadership changes, campus restructuring, and school closures. In recent years, roughly 16.6% of Texas districts have received a D or F rating. The ratings drive major policy decisions like student funding, and it relies on accurate demographic data. Yet federal policy prevents states from collecting one key category, the illegal immigration status of K-12 students. FWD.US estimates that approximately 111,000 students in Texas are illegal immigrant children. This restriction does not come directly from Plyler v. Doe. Instead, it stems largely from a 2011 Dear Colleague letter issued by the Departments of Justice and Education, which warned that asking about immigration status could discourage enrollment and create a chilling effect. The Dear Colleague letter is agency guidance. It's not law passed by Congress, and it is not required in Plyler or by the Supreme Court. Congress should clarify that it cannot prevent states from collecting necessary data to educate students. Every effective education policy relies on demographic data. Schools identify student populations to provide targeted support, whether it's for low-income students, English learners, or students with special disabilities. And they track things like race, gender, attendance, discipline, and even parental incarceration. This data is used to identify needs and measure outcomes. It is not used to stigmatize students. It's universally accepted that schools must have it to identify student needs, measure outcomes for the students, the schools, and the entire education system. Yet illegal immigration status is the one characteristic schools are effectively barred from measuring. States are asked to address complex challenges while remaining blind to a key factor influencing outcomes. This contradiction undermines the very logic of Plyler itself. If illegal immigrant children face serious disadvantage, as the court has recognized, schools must be able to identify them in order to provide appropriate supports. Evidence suggests illegal immigrant students face challenges way beyond language barriers, including higher absenteeism, mobility, interrupted schooling, and greater educational needs. A study in social science and medicine found that 97.4% of Central American and Mexican migrant children experienced at least one traumatic event before entry, and 44% showed psychological or behavioral concerns. Texas medical experts report many require significant mental health support due to sexual and violent trauma experienced during migration. These realities affect accountability systems and other students as well. Schools must determine whether performance challenges stem from language barriers, trauma, or interrupted education. But policymakers cannot answer these questions on how illegal immigrant students perform as compared to other groups. We see the consequences all across Texas. Campuses receiving failing ratings for 5 consecutive years face closure, restructuring, and state takeover. Recently, districts such as Fort Worth, Beaumont, Connolly, and Lake Worth ISD have faced such risk after 6 campuses repeatedly received failing grades. These campuses share strikingly similar characteristics. Between 80 and 97% of the students come from low-income households, compared to 60%.
Yo, I just realized the stats I gave out about Chicago schools. She might be talking about that. I mean, Chicago is a sanctuary city area. New York, that would explain New York's failure rate too. But let's just be honest, our children are fucking stupid. But I mean, that would explain the incredible failure rate though. They're letting these people in, and they just can't keep up with it because of all the mental things going on from the migration, trying to stay YouTube friendly. But that actually does make a lot of fucking sense. I might have been way too harsh on Chicago. What the fuck am I talking about? Y'all got Brandon Johnson. Go fuck yourself.
At 5 of the campuses, 64 to 92% of students are considered at risk of dropping out. A Stanford education researcher, Beth Schuler, explained, quote,
it's bad when Lori Lightfoot was better than that.
Of a school system is the thing that's going to be most predictive of variation and performance and outcomes, end quote. When schools struggle or close, communities are disrupted. Enrollment declines, families move, and local economies suffer.
I'm not going to stop being a dick.
Plyler v. Doe affect every single student in the state of Texas, in the schools and in the community. It's not just the illegal immigrant students. Congress should require the Department of Education and Justice to issue new guidance clarifying the 2011 Dear Colleague letter can't prevent states from collecting data on illegal immigration or legal immigration status of students. Congress should also pass legislation allowing states to collect immigration status, both legal and illegal. If states are required to educate illegal immigrant students, they must be allowed to identify the student population status to fully understand and address the adverse effects of Plyler v. Doe. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
He's one of the most ridiculous motherfuckers I have ever seen in politics. You thought Lori Lightfoot was bad. What comes next is always fucking worse. Holy shit, this dude. You can tell there's no lights on upstairs. You know how you look at somebody and you're just like, you kind of look at him and you go, but boy, you're fucking stupid. I can just look at you and tell. You look at him and he's just like, there's nothing fucking there, and he's just like, everything is racist and you're being racist towards me. And just like, what the actual fuck? But then again, hey, Chicago, you did it. Y'all motherfuckers vote racially. Let's be completely fucking honest. The black community votes for the black guy. The Latino community votes for the Latino. The white community votes for the white. It's just a racial fucking game with you motherfuckers. Your voting data proves that fuck. But yeah, you got Brandon Johnson after getting rid of Lori Lightfoot, and then Lori Lightfoot goes on to do the investigation into Tiffany fucking Henyard. Y'all have one big happy tree family of incestuous bullshit going on up there. I don't fucking know. but it's starting to spill out into our lives, and y'all need to calm it the fuck down. All right. I'm
Thank you, Mr.
sorry.
Rogan.
That was
Mr.
my
O'Brien,
rant
you
about
can turn your
Chicago.
microphone on.
Chairman Roy, Ranking Member Scanlon, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. The Supreme Court's decision in Plyler versus Doe rewrote rather than interpreted the Equal Protection Clause. By transforming a Texas funding provision into a nationwide mandate, the court required states to provide free K-12 education to children who have no legal right to be in the United States. The majority did not rely on established constitutional doctrine. Instead, it imported its own policy preferences, particularly concerns about illiteracy and social mobility, and constructed a novel, heightened standard of review that the court itself admitted does not ordinarily apply to non-suspect classes or non-fundamental interests. The result was an act of judicial legislation that intrudes on Congress's plenary authority over immigration, restricts state control over limited educational resources, and imposes heavy fiscal and operational burdens on already struggling school systems. For more than a century, the Supreme Court has consistently recognized that immigration is a uniquely federal
What up,
domain
Polar Bear?
entrusted
Now,
to the
dude,
political branches.
California. Dude,
Congress
I
may
ain't
draw
got
distinctions between
17
citizens,
hours
lawful
to do
residents,
that
and those
shit.
here in violation of federal law. Indeed, the court has
I'd
repeatedly
have to
affirmed
go
that
back
Congress
to the
has no
inception of
constitutional obligation to
California in
extend
that
public
point.
benefits to individuals who lack lawful status. When Texas, in 1975, enacted a statute limiting the use of state funds to educate only children legally admitted to the United States, it acted squarely within this constitutional framework. Nevertheless, the statute was challenged under the 14th Amendment, and the Plyler majority ultimately struck it down, not on legal grounds, but on speculative policy judgments about social equity and long-term socioeconomic outcomes. The court acknowledged that illegal aliens are not a suspect class and that education is not a fundamental right, yet it proceeded to treat both as if they were, devising a bespoke standard of review applicable only to the facts before it. This approach was inconsistent with precedent, inconsistent with the Constitution's text, and inconsistent with the judiciary's proper role. Under ordinary rational basis review, a state may allocate its resources in any manner reasonably related to a legitimate governmental interest.
That's my
The
point,
Plyler court
Michael.
replaced that
And it's only
deferential
going to get
standard with
worse.
what legal
They need to
scholars
calm
call
the
a
fuck
rational
down
basis
over there.
to bite, forcing Texas to justify its policy as though a fundamental right were at stake. In doing so, the court substituted its own policy views for those of the legislature and entered an area, immigration policy and resource allocation, where the Constitution explicitly entrusts authority to elected officials. The consequences of this judicial overreach have been substantial. Plyler effectively created a federalized, unfunded mandate requiring states to provide free K-12 education to all children lacking lawful presence. Today, state and local governments collectively spend tens of billions of dollars each year to comply with this mandate, even as many public schools struggle with overcrowding, limited resources, and declining performance. Estimates indicate that between 1.9 and 2.2 million illegal alien children are now enrolled in America's public schools, many of whom arrive with significant educational needs that require additional staffing, specialized instruction, and expanded support services. These obligations fall squarely on state and local budgets, which already devote more resources to K-12 education than any other expenditure category. In sum, Plyler v. Doe represents a dramatic departure from constitutional principles, established doctrine, and the proper limits of the judicial role. By elevating policy considerations above legal analysis, the court imposed long-lasting financial and operational burdens on states and localities while undermining democratic accountability. Rather than upholding
I want y'all to understand, this is still at 1.5 speed.
and has had enduring negative consequences for both constitutional governance and the effectiveness of the American public education. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
He is
Thank you, Mr.
speaking
O'Brien.
just
Mr. Rogers,
as
you may begin.
fast as I do at
Chairman Roy,
1.5
Ranking Member
speed.
Scanlon, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for
What
this
the
invitation.
fuck?
In 1982, the Supreme Court held in Plyler versus Doe that states must provide free public K-12 education to children illegally present in the United States. That decision was wrong, it should be overruled, and even in the meantime, states are not without tools to address it. Plyler presented the court with a straightforward constitutional question. Under the Equal Protection Clause, courts apply strict scrutiny when a law discriminates against a suspect class, such as based on race or religion, or burdens a fundamental right, such as the right to freedom of speech or religion. Laws rarely survive strict scrutiny review. For everything else, courts apply rational basis review, which is a permissive standard that laws almost always survive. The standard of review that courts apply usually determines the outcome. As Mr. O'Brien acknowledged, the Plyler majority conceded that the heightened standard of strict scrutiny did not apply. It acknowledged expressly that illegal aliens are not a suspect class and that education is not a fundamental right. Having made those concessions, the court was legally obligated to apply rational basis review, under which Texas's law would easily have survived. Instead, the majority invented a novel substantial state interest test found nowhere in prior precedent, then used that invented standard to strike the law down. As Chief Justice Berger wrote in dissent, quote, "If ever a court was guilty of an unabashedly result-oriented approach, this case is a prime example," end quote. The decision was a close one, with only 5 justices in the majority and 4 justices dissenting. The dissent's core critique was that the majority had ignored the requirements of the Constitution and was substituting its own policy preferences for those of the Texas legislature. It was trying to address the
1.5
perceived
is
failure of Congress to
faster
deal
than
with
I
illegal immigration
speak.
rather than allowing the political branches of government
But
to
at
fulfill
that
their
speed,
functions.
he's reading
the
my
Constitution,
speed.
Berger wrote, does not make justices into platonic guardians authorized to strike down laws that do not meet the court standards of desirable social policy.
This
The
dude is
dissent also
faster,
correctly
I'll
pointed out
admit
that it is
that.
rational for a state to conclude that it does not have the same responsibility to provide benefits for persons whose very presence in the country is illegal. In Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, which overruled Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court articulated 5 tests for whether prior precedent should be overruled. Plyler fails every one. It was egregiously wrong from the start. The majority itself conceded that prior court precedent required that the Texas law be upheld.
Plyler's reasoning is thin, lacking any grounding in constitutional text or history. Its substantial state interest standard is unworkable. No court has coherently defined it in 40 years. It has distorted immigration federalism by chilling legitimate state policy choices, and it implicates no concrete transactional reliance interest of the kind that the law is designed to protect. Critically, Plyler's own majority acknowledged that undocumented status coupled with some articulable federal policy might enhance state authority, end quote, and thus justify the type of policy that the Plyler court had rejected. Congress has since provided exactly that policy. The Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, or PERORA, declared it a compelling government interest to deny public benefits to illegal aliens, and it barred them from federal public benefits. The premise on which Plyler rested thus no longer exists. Some states have started considering adopting laws that would bar illegal alien children from receiving free public education. They're trying to create a vehicle for the Supreme Court to reconsider Plyler and overturn it. Congress can accelerate reconsideration by enacting legislation explicitly authorizing states to condition free K-12 enrollment on lawful presence. Even under Plyler, meaningful tools remain. States can condition free public education on residency and then define residency as requiring lawful presence. Plyler bars denial based on immigration status, but a state that conditions enrollment on legal residency raises a fundamentally different question. States can also require districts to collect and publicly report the fiscal cost of illegal alien enrollment, building an evidentiary record for future litigation. Finally, they can restrict supplemental programs beyond the basic K-12 curriculum and deny in-state post-secondary tuition in compliance with federal law. In conclusion, as Chief Justice Berger wrote in his Plyler dissent, quote, "The Constitution does not provide a cure for every social ill," end quote. The court should correct its 1982 error. In the meantime, the states and Congress can take action to keep illegal aliens from taking advantage of the generosity of the American taxpayer. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, thank you. Mr. Sines, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, honorable members. My name is Thomas Sines, and I have been for 17 years now the President and General Counsel of MALDEF, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. I am proud, as the current head of MALDEF, that my predecessors were the legal representatives for the plaintiffs in Plyler versus Doe, the first of a number of cases consolidated and coming before the Supreme Court in 1982. It's important to note that the Plyler versus Doe decision was the product of a conservative Supreme Court. Indeed, 4 of the 5 justices in the majority, including the author of the opinion,
What is that important to note
Republican
for?
presidents. In addition, it's important
What
to
up,
note
Tracy?
that
How
the
you doing?
swing justice, if you will, Lewis Powell, has impeccable conservative credentials, and he is clearly the justice whose decision ended up being the decision in Plyler. He was the 5th vote. But it's also important to note, as not often remembered, that while this court split 5-4 on the constitutional issue, the court was unanimous in its conclusion that the Texas law struck down was bad public policy. I say that because Chief Justice Warren Berger, who wrote on behalf of all of the dissenters who joined his opinion in full, including the soon-to-be Chief Justice, conservative William Rehnquist, on behalf of all of them, he stated that this Texas policy was a bad public policy. He called it folly. It's important to keep that in mind as you review the basis of the majority decision in Plyler. In Plyler, the majority simply applied rational basis, a standard recognized by the Supreme Court previously and all the way up to date, as a basis for evaluating legislation that singles out a particular group of persons for exclusion from a public benefit, in this case, excluding minor children who are undocumented from receiving public education. In applying rational basis, the majority considered a number of factors. Among them are factors that have clearly not changed in the 44 years since Plyler was decided. First, the fact is, as the court noted then, many of the students who are undocumented today and who would be deprived of a basic public education were the Texas law to be revived, many of those students will remain in the country indefinitely or permanently and will adjust their status to that of either lawful permanent resident or naturalized U.S. citizen. As such, they will be expected, as Brandon noted, to contribute to our economy, to our society, and to our government. Their ability to do so, if deprived of a basic public education, would be taken away from them. Second, court did
But they're not
recognize
supposed
that
to
public
be
education
here,
is
though.
expensive, and that's the case today as well. However, despite that fact, public education is perhaps
They
the
can't
government
help us
service
with
that
our
receives the highest
economy
levels of support throughout the
if
country.
they're
Why is
stupid.
that? Because that expense is an investment.
They're not-
It is an investment that pays
They're
off.
not supposed to be here to
Having
do
these
anything
children
with
in
the
school,
economy in
basic
the first
education,
place.
When they become citizens or lawful permanent residents and are contributing to the economy, pays off much more than the cost of the education. Billions, and indeed over time, trillions of dollars more into the economy, into government through tax payments, and through immeasurable benefits such as patents, innovations, and improved service throughout the economy. The court also recognized that these children are not responsible for their status in this country. They are minors. We're talking about elementary and secondary school children who came to the country as a result of decisions by their parents. That is still true today.
Yeah.
Despite the slight increase in unaccompanied minors, the fact is the vast, vast majority of undocumented students did not come to the United States on their own. Finally, the court recognized, and I note here that Lewis Powell's concurrence particularly focused on what would happen.
Is
if the
that
Texas
your
law was
argument?
implemented.
That
It would leave
was
thousands
that
and
ever
thousands
an
of children
argument?
on the street during the daytime rather than being in school. Well, the Plyler decision didn't explore that as deeply as it might have. The fact is,
Wait. Other than the unaccompanied minors, because whoever was bringing them along might have died or didn't want to complete the trip or whatever fucking happened. Other than the unaccompanied minors, what the fuck are you talking about with that? Nobody ever argued. Let me roll that back for a second. Hold up. What?
unaccompanied minors, decisions by our minors. court also recognized that these children are not responsible for their status in this country. They are minors. We're talking about elementary and secondary school children who came to the country as a result of decisions by their parents. That is still true today, despite.
Look, I get you. You are right. It is no fault of their own that they are actually fucking here. But they shouldn't be here, though. That is the issue. Okay? It is no fault of their own that they are here, but there should be no reason that... it is no fault of their own that they are here, but it is no fault of my own, or on my own fucking dime, that they should have anything that they should have simply because... Well, let's just fucking be honest. They don't belong here. They take more from the system than they actually do put in there. Oh, they bring in billions upon billions in our economy. Yeah, motherfucker, and they take out a lot more. And they don't have to pay it. It's off the taxpayer dime at that point. Just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up with that dumbass shit. No. You have no reason on earth to sit there and say, a stupid population benefits no one, when it's off my fucking dime and they shouldn't be here in the first place. Let them be a stupid population elsewhere. Because apparently, from what you're telling me, is they're going to be stupid regardless. Okay, that's not true, but the ones who are smart are going to be the ones who are going to do it in the legal way in the first place, right? Instead of paying cartels to ship your fucking children across the fucking world. Like, who does that shit? All right.
The slight increase in
they
unaccompanied
still
minors,
refuse to assimilate,
the fact is the
refuse
vast
to learn the
majority of
language,
undocumented
and continue to
students
suck the
did not
feet of the
come to the United
American
States on their own.
taxpayer. The
Finally,
teeth.
the court recognized,
Not
and I know
feet,
here,
but
that
yes.
Lewis Powell's concurrence particularly focused on what would happen if the Texas law were implemented. It would leave thousands and thousands of children on the street during the daytime rather than being in school. Well, the Plyler decision didn't explore that as deeply as it might have. The fact is that eliminating Plyler would threaten the continuance of public education. Why? Because kids out of school have a tendency to attract their peers to leave school as well. It will start with their siblings as a result of the phenomenon of mixed status families, where older children are undocumented, but younger children are birthright citizens. It will extend beyond the families to peers, and ultimately, it will be impossible to enforce truancy laws because any child who doesn't want to be in school will know to simply say, I'm undocumented, something that any truance officer would be unable to disprove.
Thank you, Mr. Steins. I now recognize my friend from California, Mr. McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, a few weeks ago, the president put a very simple proposition to the Democrats. Do you believe that the first duty of the federal government is to defend American citizens and not illegal immigrants? Not one of our Democratic colleagues supported that proposition, not one. And we can plainly see that attitude on full display at this hearing, in fact, in any hearing where the subject presents itself. You know, I've never understood the logic of Plyler, which seems to be that illegal immigrants are both entitled to taxpayer-paid benefits, but at the same time are subject to deportation. That makes no sense. If they have no right to be here, I don't understand how they have a claim on taxpayer benefits. The other foundation of Plyler seems to be, well, don't worry about it. There aren't that many of them. Well, that might have been true in 1973. It's certainly not true today. It's indisputable
That's true.
that this is diverting billions of dollars of school funds away from educating American citizens and legal residents. In California alone, taxpayers are paying about $3 billion a year for this purpose. That's $3 billion of education funds that are not reaching American citizens and legal immigrants. Imagine the outrage from the Democrats if we proposed cutting $3 billion from California's public schools, but that's exactly what their open borders policies have done. Now, we just heard Ms. Ganlon tell us that this is good for students and good for taxpayers. I wonder if these people ever listen to themselves. And I think we're entitled to ask, how have our public schools fared since this, the largest illegal mass migration in history under the Democrats? Are students doing better or worse? Ms. Drogan, what does the data actually tell us?
Microphone.
So the data actually tells us when we're hearing numbers of a couple of thousand, that's completely inaccurate. Even if we're using a left-leaning pro-immigration organization that ranking member Scanlon quoted, FWD.US, they say that in Texas alone, there's at least 111,000 students. So this obviously is billions of dollars. We can look at the data and see since 2015 with the unaccompanied minors that have been released, if we use the TEA PEMS data that tells us how much we're spending, it's $18,125 per student across the state of Texas on average. Of course, doing English second language and whatnot costs more. But if we use that number, we can see that we're already approaching $2 billion at $1.78 billion. We could also use the Huffine Liberty Institute's research that went back over a course of 10 years to see the amount of money that we were spending in Texas, and they found that it's roughly 8% on illegal immigrant students. According to our data last year.
So now this is supposed to be helping our students. I don't understand
it's
that logic.
about $8 billion a year if we use their data. So
on my first trip to the border, I spoke with a Border Patrol officer who related a conversation he just had with a mother who'd taken her 8-year-old son on the dangerous trip to cross our border illegally. He asked her why she'd expose her child to such danger. And she answered, well, to get him a good education and get away from the gangs. And the Border Patrol agent said, well, don't you understand those gangs are already here? And your child will be placed in a classroom where he doesn't understand the language or the culture, and he'll look to those very gangs for his acceptance.
Yep.
Every day we hear of cases in which illegals with criminal records or gang affiliations
That's
are
true.
found in our public schools.
That's
There's a story in the
fucking
news today
true.
coming out of Fairfax County, just a few miles from here, of a 19-year-old illegal alien from El Salvador who was groping young girls for months before the district took any.
With the fucking language barrier. Anybody that comes over here is not going to be able to speak English. They don't know what the fuck's going on. They got kids that are going into the school. They're going to be looking for some kind of social cohesion with themselves. They're going to go for the people who speak their fucking language. They're going to go for the people who actually have their culture. They're going to go for the people who are them, which are usually cartels, the children of cartels and shit like that. Yeah. Holy shit. Well, I'm not going to say usually. Not every child is, but you know what I'm saying.
Disciplinary actions. Mr. O'Brien, have there been any studies of how many illegals with criminal records or criminal activities are in our schools today?
I don't believe so, only because it's virtually impossible to get the relevant data. We conducted studies that indicated that illegal aliens commit crimes at a rate anywhere from 2 to 3 times higher than citizens and lawful immigrants. So I would presume.
There have been extensive studies presented to our immigration subcommittee on that very point. The Democrats love to claim, oh, there's no higher criminal rate among illegals. Well, that is completely belied by the facts.
Oh, hell yeah, it is.
Mr. Rogers, what makes you think that the Supreme Court's inclined to reverse this decision?
Well, the Dobbs decision set out a very clear standard of 5 factors that can be used to evaluate whether prior precedent was wrongly decided and should be reevaluated. And like I said in my testimony, all 5 of those factors, Plyler fails all of them. And so I think applying the standard that they've set out, Plyler is ripe for reconsideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sines, I want to return to something that the gentleman from California said. Did the Supreme Court say that a family could not be removed from the country if their non-citizen children were in a public school? Or are they still deportable if the family's not here lawfully?
So the way children tend to be deported, as I think you know, Congressmember, is a parent is deported and has to make a decision whether to take the children with them or to leave them in the custody of someone else. That's the way deportation works for the Plyler class that we're talking about. But it's also important to note, in response to what the member from California said, the undocumented, many of them have a basis to remain in this country. And if they were actually placed in deportation proceedings, they will have defenses available to them, and many of them will, through that process, ultimately stay in the country permanently. So you can't say that all
What would one of those be? You mean if they were seeking asylum, for example? Or?
No, if they were to seek some suspension of deportation because of long-standing ties in this country, because of continued connection in this country, or because they simply have a basis for adjusting relationship to someone else that they didn't have previously or didn't know provided a basis.
But my point is a little bit different, which is that there's nothing in Plyler versus Doe which gives anybody the right to stay in America if they don't already have such a right. You're positing that in some cases they might have such a right, but there's nothing in Plyler versus Doe that changes immigration law. So all the Supreme Court said in Plyler versus Doe was, as long as this family is in America, the children have a right to be in public school and should not be out on the street or kept at home or what have you. Am I reading that correctly?
That's absolutely correct. This is all about students who are here and therefore have to be somewhere during the day. They should be in public school.
But the Supreme Court never altered anybody's immigration
But not off
status.
the taxpayer dime.
So
They don't have
what's
the
your
right
response to Plyler's critics who are saying
the taxpayers.
that this places a massive fiscal burden on the country?
They have no right to any kind of public. They have no right to any kind of public commodity if they don't have the right to be in this country. Plain and fucking simple. We're done. If they're not allowed to be in this, or I'm not even going to say not allowed. If they're not legally in this country, they have no right to a goddamned thing. Not a damn thing. And I say even hospitals too. You have the right to go in there and pay for it. If you can pay for it, you can't pay for it, too fucking bad. My taxpayer dollars shouldn't. Because that's not going to happen in your country, is it? Wherever the fuck you came from, your country's not going to do that for me, right? I just go over there, and if I can't pay for my own fucking way, they're just going to give me everything? No, fuck no. So what makes you think you have the ability to do it here? Because you got some treasonous cocksuckers who want to replace me with you? So they can control you because you're more willing to go ahead and be some kind of socialist communist country because that's where the fuck you came from in the first place? And that's all you know. You don't know the wonders of being in a country like this. You don't know the actual fucking power that the American people have that they're losing because, well, we're not taught that shit anymore. You don't know all of that shit. So yeah, you're gonna be easier to control. and still under the false guise of being some kind of democracy. Look at what the fuck the Democrats have been creating this entire goddamn time. Look at who the fuck they are, what they are, and call this a fucking democracy. Holy shit.
So it's untrue because you have to look at both sides of the ledger. And what we're talking about is an investment that we make in any child who's in public education. And that is, the payoff comes when they are able to participate in the workforce in many college education requiring professions and the like. A recent study points out that a large number of the recipients of services under Plyler end up in positions that require a college degree. Beyond that, you have to recognize that these are also taxpayers. These families are taxpayers like their neighbors. Their status does not change the fact that they pay sales taxes, property taxes if they have property, income taxes if there's an income tax.
But they're not in the Social Security system, right?
Exactly. They're not eligible, as you know, and as has been pointed out by others on this panel. So they are paying those taxes from what they are able to earn.
Yeah. So in ordinary times, if we're not in a time of anti-immigrant hysteria and nativism, people have accepted this for a half a century, right? And it does not seem like a big deal that...
I would argue, Congressmember, that it's not a big deal now for most of the people out in the public. There really are not huge numbers of bills moving forward in our legislatures. Yes, bills get introduced, but when legislators start doing their job and look at what the consequences are of actually attempting to implement a law like the one struck down in Plyler, they realize this is not wise public policy, and they tend to back away from it. So there's no clamoring to change Plyler versus Doe after 44 years.
Yeah. In the brief colloquy I had with the chairman at the beginning, we talked a little bit about my reference to the first great generation of revolutionary patriots, people like Tom Paine or Thomas Jefferson, as undocumented or the descendants of undocumented people. I didn't think there was anything controversial about that. I suppose from the perspective of Native Americans who were here long before anybody else, everybody was undocumented at that point. But have we not had a fluid sense of the border? Now, we need to have actual laws that exist, but this has been part of the law that kids who are here get to go to school here, at least until their family is deported, right?
Absolutely. This is as well established as much of immigration law because we didn't actually control our southern border until the middle of the 20th century.
Well, that was Mexico, right, until the 1840s and the 1850s, with the annexation, I think it was in 1845, of Texas and California a little bit after that. What is the bottom line then? Is all of this really headed to try to get a very right-leaning Supreme Court to overturn Plyler versus Doe? Is that what this is about?
I think that's the ultimate goal, but there's an impediment, which is this is now part of federal immigration policy.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to recognize the gentleman from Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to note that our annual debt has now gone past $39 trillion, and I yield my time to the chairman from Texas.
Well, I appreciate my friend from Kentucky, notably wearing his debt clock, where he's announcing to the world that we are now cracking $39 trillion. And I would note that there are a lot of reasons why, and this is one of them, among many, that we continue to have this fanciful notion that we can just say anybody can come into the United States and that it doesn't have an impact on our overall budget. And that the idea that it's like somehow, oh, there's this magic economic driver and economic creation of revenue that is offsetting the cost of our government services and programs and welfare and education and crime and hospitals that somehow that magically pays for itself. It is absolutely insane. Mr. Sines, there are approximately 2.4 billion children in the world under the age of 18. Can they all come to the United States and be educated?
Obviously not, but those who are here have a right now for 44 years
how about a billion?
to education.
Mr. Sines, how about a billion? Can a billion children around the world come to the United States and get a free education?
Obviously not.
Okay. How about 500 million?
These are matters of capacity of
100 million?
It's a matter of the capacity of our country.
10 million.
Chair.
When we're a God-fearing, Jesus-loving people, 10 million people around the world can come here to the United States.
So far as I know, this country actually has religious pluralism and respects all religions, so I object to your question in that sense. But I'm not going to give you a number, Mr. Chair. The simple fact is...
You're not going to give me a number.
He just said he's a God-fearing man. That has nothing to do with that whole thing. Dude, that was a fucking reach to try to weasel your way out of that, and that did not work. Holy shit.
And you're not going to give me a number because you know this is fanciful unicorn nonsense. You know this is unicorn nonsense. Well, you know what? This is absolute aberration.
I mean, he's
you know
right,
precisely
though.
What's going on. You think that you can make policy via the court, that you can somehow establish that there's the right to come here to the United States and get a free education. But when posed with the question, how many people can come here, you know there's not an answer. Because right now the people of Texas are the ones left holding the bag. Ms. Drogan.
That's false,
Ms.
Mr.
Drogan.
Chair. And you don't know me.
Ms. Drogan.
I'm not running for office.
Oh, you don't know me.
Whether or not I'm running for office is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is...
That's not true. You don't know me. Yeah, that is fucking true. You have no goddamn concept of how many fucking people should come to this country illegally and get a free education just because your pussy hurts that they're stupid. Really? Our own fucking children are stupid. What do we do about that? How about we make them intelligent motherfuckers before we make anybody else from any other country intelligent motherfuckers? Holy shit. That was a good argument.
Mr. Sines, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Sines, I'm the chairman of this committee, Mr. Sines, and it's my time. And the fact of the matter is, the people of Texas, Ms. Rogan, are the ones left holding the bag. Yes, are the taxpayers in Texas paying education for illegal alien children to the detriment of American citizen children?
Yes, sir.
Can you expand on that? We talked about it before on the numbers. We've had over 100-something thousand unaccompanied alien children. How about the fact that we've got, for every English learner, Texas schools receive $616 or $950 for those enrolled in a dual language program. How much does that cost?
About $830 million, sir.
And how much money do we get from the federal government for that?
$8.1 million.
So the Texas taxpayers are the ones left holding the bag on that number alone, correct?
Yes, sir, 90% of it.
And what is the impact for the average school district out there that is dealing with the fact that you have illegal alien children that are being educated on the back of the taxpayers?
It's massive. That's what we were talking about. Is this isn't just about the illegal children. It's also about the entire system. We have accountability systems, and these students. I pointed out several districts. Lake Worth ISD. 43.6% of them are English learners. This is a crushing barrier. It goes between 30 and 70% that are English learners in these districts that are slated for takeover. It doesn't just impact the students, the illegal students in the schools. It impacts the entire school and American citizens who are losing out on resources. Their teachers are being forced to try and do Google Translate on their phones. All of these things obviously impact the total education system, and the taxpayers are left holding the bag for it.
Somebody asserted earlier that there's nobody clamoring in the state of Texas to deal with this issue. First of all, do you believe that to be true?
That is 100% false.
Correct. And I hear about it all the time across the state of Texas, since I do crisscross the state of Texas quite a lot. And the reality is, with respect to that question, do we have the information or the data for the average American to understand the extent to which forced education of illegal alien children is having an impact on their kids, their school district, their bond issuances, their property taxes? Are we prohibited from having that information right now?
Yes, we are prohibited from having that information, and it has created a, quote, chilling effect on districts. I hear from teachers, superintendents, and leaders all across the state of Texas. They want this data collected so that we can have a comprehensive view of how this impacts students and taxpayers and our education system as a whole.
Thank you, Mr.
I would
Reagan.
too.
I'll now recognize Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, Mr. O'Brien, you made a comment that the statistics show that illegal
fucking agree.
immigrants or undocumented
Release it all, then.
committed crime at a higher rate than other folks. I've had statistics, and we talked about them as a committee, that are just the opposite. They came from Texas. Where are your statistics from?
The statistics that we looked at were from the SCAP, which is the State Criminal Alien Apprehension Program.
The state?
It's a federal program that reimburses states for the cost of incarcerating anyone who is not a citizen who is present in the United States, particularly illegal aliens.
Do you have a copy of that study with you?
I don't have it with me. We can get you a copy of it.
Well, just to inform you, the Justice Department did a study a few years ago in Texas and said that undocumented immigrants are at a much lesser rate of committing offenses.
Holy shit, you fucking dumbass motherfucker.
And other statistics
Are
show
you
that as
serious?
well. They are less likely to commit offenses. Most of them don't get out and are afraid right now to get out of their houses because they're afraid they'll get shot by ICE.
Own this
taken
fucker.
To some detention camp and held for an unlimited
Own
amount of
this
time.
fucker.
Even
Shut
if they have
his
their
ass
hats
up
on
right
when
now.
they're 5 years old, and they take them to Texas and put them away. That's not good for children. That's not good for America. That's not good for anybody. That's anti-American. So if you show me your statistics and get them to me, I'll look at them, and I'll send you the Justice Department statistics that show that illegal or undocumented immigrants do not commit crimes at a higher rate.
Well, we certainly can get that to you, and my experience as an immigration judge and a trial attorney with ICE would indicate differently. In my experience...
Your experience is not statistics. It's your experience. It's very subjective.
I would...
Objective.
I think the statistics...
Dude, it's time for you to shut your fucking mouth and just start speaking with some goddamn respect to me. Because if you do not, I'm about to go savage.
I was going to say that, in fact, the number of students who are in school as a result of Plyler versus Doe is dictated by our
That would have been my
policy,
response.
So
if you do not show more respect in your fucking dialogue to me, I'm about to go fucking
we're talking about
savage.
students who are here. As earlier was mentioned by your colleague, actually, we're talking about students who are here, their families are
You
here.
will show me
don't know how
some
long they'll be here,
motherfucking
but they're here,
respect,
maybe here
bitch-made
indefinitely,
motherfucker.
permanently. That's the class of students we're talking about who benefit from Plyler versus Doe. But not only they benefit, their classmates benefit, and all of society benefits because
Talk
they
down to
have
me
the
like
skills
that shit.
to ultimately
We
contribute
ain't
to our
doing
economy
that.
in important ways to the
I'm a
tune of billions,
motherfucking
ultimately
taxpayer,
trillions of
faggot.
dollars.
You represent, you are beholden to me, motherfucker. You may not represent me, but you do answer to me.
Well, the reality is that...
I don't live in Tennessee, but I'm also not one sitting here saying that black people love me either.
We don't have data about undocumented
Making
students
everything
in grade school.
fucking
We do
racial.
Is it so many of those who were undocumented in elementary and secondary school do go on to higher education? These are the students who now have DACA and their younger colleagues who have been rendered ineligible for DACA. But these are the ones who are contributing to our economy who, frankly, through their contributions in healthcare and in other fields, saved us during the pandemic. So that's what we're talking about, not students who are low performing. I think it's important to note, because there's been a lot of conflation of this, that when you talk about English learners, you're not talking about undocumented students. The vast majority of non-citizens in this country are not undocumented. They have some other status, lawful permanent residence or other. And that comprises a portion of the English learner population. And frankly, a large portion of the English learner population is United States citizens born in this country who have every right to stay permanently and who are in school but come to school with a need to acquire English fluency at an academic level that they didn't acquire in their homes prior to coming to school. Similarly, the chair mentioned in his opening remarks the Latino population of a particular school district. Latino does not equal undocumented, not by any means. The Latino population is overwhelmingly U.S. citizen.
How much you want to bet the audience was a show from this little fag here? I'm gonna show you. How much you want to bet? You got a white male and female. You got a black dude. A little, I guess, Indian dude back there. A Latino. A Chinese. And they're all there for him. How much you want to think and bet he did some kind of thing where, hey, we're going to take a trip to D.C. You can watch me argue in front of the house here. Look at the smile on this dude's face as he's trying to say that your fucking taxpayer dollars should go to educating every single fucking person that just happens to come across that border. And they should be here while they're in the education system. It's fine for them to stay. You must pay for them to exist in your fucking education system because every child must be educated. Do you understand how retarded and obscene that is?
And lawful permanent resident in this country. So talking about increased numbers of Latino students in a school is
It's
completely
an
irrelevant to what
incredibly...
we're talking about here, which is the experience of undocumented students.
It's
in
also
public schools.
incredibly offensive that you're always using children as an argument for you.
Thank you. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a March 18, 2026 statement and report titled The Power of Plyler, highlighting how the Plyler decision has aided in decades of economic advancement.
Without objection.
I would also introduce the Texas-specific data showing the net fiscal impact of Plyler has been $93 billion to the positive
Without
of
objection.
Texas. And finally, I would enter a 2021 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research entitled Presence of Immigrant Students Boosts Test Scores for All.
Without objection. I'll now recognize the gentlelady from Wyoming. 5 minutes.
Thank you. When discussing the issue of K-12 education, there is no free public education. Every decision that is made here in Washington, D.C. or within any state or local community comes at the cost of the American taxpayer. Plyler versus Doe effectively imposed an unfunded mandate whose consequences due to years of neglect and mismanagement of our immigration system across multiple administrations has gone far beyond what could have ever been foreseen in 1982. This is evident as the court's decision rested on the assertion that the number of illegal aliens in public schools was small and that there was no evidence in the record suggesting that illegal entrants impose any significant burden on the state's economy. We know that is absolutely untrue. And I'm sure that Mr.
Yes.
Zanes, if he'd actually read the data, would recognize that as well. This decision, which came at a time markedly different than the circumstances we face today, negatively impacts every aspect and participation of our public education system at the cost of hardworking American families. Reporting from 2023 found that New York City grappled with the challenge of incorporating nearly 20,000 illegal alien students into its classes, while in 2024, the Denver Public Schools incorporated over 3,000. Ms. Drogan, knowing that schools are generally unable to ask about a student's immigration status, does any consistently reliable data exist that could give us an idea of how many illegal alien students are enrolled in our public school systems and how much it costs the American taxpayer?
It's all just estimates, and I would say that that's very intentional, whether it's weaponized opaqueness or incompetence. The idea is that they don't want us to identify them, to understand and be able to give accurate numbers on how many, where they are, what the impact, not just the cost, but the socioeconomic impact of entire communities. Again, I was listening to Mr. McClintock talk about a mother talking about she wanted to get her kids away from gangs. There are gangs in Houston schools. Trende Aragua is in Houston schools. This has been proven. So to say that we can give an accurate number, we can use Census Bureau data, we can use different entities that try and extrapolate from Customs and Immigration or other services, but the truth is we don't know, and that is very intentional, particularly by the Obama administration's Dear Colleague letter in 2011.
Well, then, Mr. O'Brien, wouldn't you say that the same is true for crime statistics? Isn't that intentional to ignore the immigration status of many people who commit crimes in order to cover up the fact that, in fact, illegal aliens do commit crimes at a higher rate than native-born?
Yes, that is 100% correct. And you also have to take into account that any illegal alien is by definition a criminal because they have violated 8 U.S.C. 1325
There you go.
by an alien, and so they've committed a crime to enter the United States.
Okay.
There
If
you
the data
go.
is not there and verification is not an option, are there adequate safeguards at the state and local level to monitor and mitigate misuse of taxpayer funding, including issues such as residency or enrollment fraud?
No, not anyone that can track it accurately. We simply do not have the data.
What reforms, if any,
Take
have
it
been
easy,
taken at
Muffin.
the state and local levels, particularly over the course of the Biden-Harris border crisis? Has there been any?
No, the most recent has been Tennessee has passed a law through the House asking to be able to track this data.
All right, and again, Ms. Drogan, given that the national average cost of educating a single student exceeds $16,000, how have state and local governments accounted for spikes in enrollment stemming
Polar, you may have a thing there. Give up your citizenship to this country for an illegal. You want them here. Fine. You get the fuck out.
from unchecked illegal immigration?
It's crushing. The debt in Texas is growing from not just what we're spending at the state level, but we also have to recognize that our bond debt, we have $234.2 billion of bond debt. This brings massive amount of debt from our taxpayers, and we cannot identify who they are, where they're going, and the impact on Texans as a whole.
So have essential services programs or facility improvements been reduced or delayed due to the enrollment burden that Plyler versus Doe imposes on our nation's schools?
I think that's a very accurate statement, that there are students that are not getting the services, American students, whether they're special education students or in other classifications that are not getting the services because we are having to redirect student funding to pay for English second language teachers, tutors, all sorts of this. But also, as I noted in my testimony, there's a whole host of other problems, not just chronic absenteeism, but
Yeah,
you look at
she
the
don't
medical
seem so
results, the
nervous
mental health
anymore.
problems. When you have these students that are coming in and they have severe mental health problems due to traumatic events, whether it's rape or violence that they've occurred, this takes other resources out of the school system.
Okay, well, I thank you for the testimony. I have many other questions, but I also want to, at this point, ask unanimous consent to introduce an article entitled "Illegal Immigrant Student Accused of Groping Girls in North Virginia High School," related to an adult student who lied about his age so that he could enroll in high school. I also would like to introduce unanimous consent for an article, "Vance Reveals $19 billion in fraud uncovered in Minneapolis and hints that California is the next target,"
Without objection.
clearly erasing any financial benefits that illegals may provide in this country. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady from Wyoming. I will now recognize the gentlelady from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to start just by saying there are no illegal children. I think it's a very cruel thing to say about children. There is an illegal war.
It's cruel,
on
so they're not
right now
illegal.
That's already cost
Just shut the
taxpayers
fuck up.
$16 billion.
Just shut the fuck
There is
up.
an illegal cover-up of the Epstein files that is happening right now. There is an illegal corruption by the Trump administration officials like Kristi Noem in directing government contracts to family members. Those are all illegal. But it's important that we don't say that there are illegal children. That is a very cruel and hurtful statement to make. Republicans would have the American people blame immigrants for all their problems, but it's not immigrants who are
There
making
ain't
it
no
harder to
fucking
feed
way
families.
this bitch is gonna
Republicans
try
did that
this
by
shit,
cutting
right?
hundreds of billions of dollars from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's not immigrants who are raising the cost of health care for children. Republicans did that by cutting hundreds of billions of dollars from the Children's Health Insurance Program. And it's not immigrants who are hurting the quality of our public education. Republicans are now trying to do that by overturning the Supreme Court's historic decision in Plyler v. Doe. That decision established that undocumented students are protected by the 14th Amendment against discriminatory state laws that deny them equal access to public education. And Justice William Brennan said it best when he said, "These students, quote, live within the structure of our civic institutions and contribute to the progress of our nation." Mr. Syons, a lot of these discussions end up dehumanizing immigrants, and I wanted you to humanize these students for us. Who are they? Bring them into the room with us. Tell them who they are, how they've contributed to the progress of our nation.
Well, first of all, they're the older brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens. And then when they complete their education, go on to higher education, and adjust their status and remain here permanently, they are the U.S. citizen fathers and mothers of United States citizens today. When you talk about a decision that goes back...
So, you're talking about anchor babies. I mean, that's not an argument, sir. Just because they came out of somebody's vagina here in the United States does not make them a citizen. That's not a thing. No, if you have to prove, no. See, if you have to prove that you are a citizen if you were born overseas, like I was, because I was born to U.S. fucking Air Force parents, if you have to do that, then just by bare fucking just plopping yourself out into this country does not make you a citizen. If that were true, I'm a citizen of Germany. You think Germany's just going to be like, all right, fine, you're a citizen now. And still let me live over here? Wouldn't I have to go through your immigration process to become an American if that were the fucking thing? I mean, I have a certificate of birth abroad. I was born to U.S. parents across fucking seas, bitch fuck. So if I have to prove that I am an American citizen when I was born overseas, shouldn't somebody born overseas have to prove that they're an American citizen? Oh, they are just by simply being born here? No. Okay, then I'm a fucking German citizen. That makes no fucking sense now, does it? What a fucking tard.
44 years, we have a long history of folks who were able to attend school because of Plyler, because they were in Texas or another state that might have adopted that policy, and who have succeeded beyond anyone's dreams, making contributions to our economy, to our society, and even to government.
And you mentioned during COVID, I want to bring another example from my home state. Itzel Santiago Pastrana grew up going to public schools near Seattle, where she had teachers who mentored her and inspired her to attend the University of Washington. As a DACA recipient, now a naturalized U.S. citizen, you talked about this progression in some of your answers, she has decided to give back to her community by working at an immigration law firm for a decade and at the State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division. And the whole discussion reminds me of the debate that we keep having in this committee around birthright citizenship, another clear protection of the 14th Amendment that Republicans continue to attack. This subcommittee held a hearing last year, and one of the witnesses testified that eliminating birthright citizenship would, quote, create a permanent underclass, a caste system which was the very result that the Reconstruction Congress intended to end, end quote. Mr. Syons, would removing students like Itzel from the classroom also create a permanent underclass?
It would, and the majority in Plyler versus Doe recognize that, and creating such a permanent underclass would have immediate negative
that
repercussions for the
permanent
public school system,
underclass
as I was
wouldn't be
outlining.
here
You will
because
lose
they would be
students into
deported.
schools,
What the
not
fuck
just
are you
undocumented
talking
students.
about?
And it has long-term consequences, of course, for all of society. When you have a permanent underclass, they are deprived of any ability to contribute in the way that DACA recipients and others have continued to contribute as doctors, as lawyers.
Hey, faggot. If they're here illegally, you want them to have the same rights as DACA? Is anybody else that comes here legally? Then what's the point of coming here legally? What is the fucking point, asshole? Look, I know you fuckers like to use undocumented to go through every single motherfucker, but if they're undocumented and they're not citizens, faggot, they're not citizens. There's no such thing as an undocumented fucking citizen. So if they're undocumented, they're not a fucking citizen of this country. Therefore, they shouldn't afford the rights and privileges that are afforded to anybody that is a citizen of this country through the taxpayer fucking dime. If you want them to have those rights, you pay for it your goddamn self. Start a little GoFundMe for every single one of these pathetic, worthless fucks that come over here trying to think that they're going to come in here and take the fuck over. Yeah, because that's what they're doing, faggot. We know that. We've seen it. We know it's happening. So if you want to go ahead and continue this warfare against me, there will be some serious consequences.
Important professions and positions throughout society.
What about the impact on U.S. citizen children? What's the impact in the classroom likely to be?
It actually improves their education because they're exposed to other cultures, they're exposed to other experiences.
When those undocumented
students are sitting next to them.
And when they're not there,
they
opposite is
lose
true.
all of that. They lose all of that. Their only encounters with those students would be out on the streets. That's not likely to be a very positive encounter on either side. We're talking about enhancing public education by continuing to follow a 44-year-old decision or bringing public education to an end as we know it.
In addition to taking away benefits in the classroom, what are the broader consequences to the American economy? You've sort of referred to this if Plyler was overturned and students like Itzel were denied equal access to education.
Well, our economy would take a huge hit. I mean, there's no denying that people who are allowed to have an education are able to contribute more to our society through tax payments and through their contributions on the job. If you take away even the basic education that folks need, their ability to contribute will be rendered almost a nullity.
I think this is such an important...
Okay, you want to talk about how our economy would take a hit. Let's talk about this. Okay, cool. Yeah, they don't bring in money for the economy. Yeah, they also don't take out money from the economy. Now, do they? At that point in time. Oh, so we don't make a lot more money. We also don't spend more than we bring in with them motherfuckers. Now, do they? I mean, if we do that as American citizens, if we spend more per American citizen than they bring in, which is supposedly why our debt is so fucking bad. If we do that for American citizens, how fucked do you think we're gonna be if we do it for illegals as well? You stupid son of a bitch. They cost more than they ever fucking will bring into the economy. And your fucking answer is graph go up. Graph go up. Holy fucking shit. We spend more per citizen of this country than that citizen brings in. Yet you want to give that to every single fucking person on this planet just by simply walking across a border? This right here is the dumbest fucking shit I have ever seen. And this smug motherfucker knows what he's doing. He knows what he's fucking doing. This is why I say it's going to be a huge fucking problem. This motherfucker knows what he is doing.
Important conversation that you're bringing to the table. I thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back, but I do have some unanimous consent requests to enter. First one is granting, this is from New America, granting undocumented students access to public education delivers $633 billion return on investment.
No objection.
Next one is from Brookings. Are immigrant students disproportionately consuming educational resources? And I would just say that the conclusion is absolutely not.
Without objection.
Next one is from NPR. Immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than U.S.-born Americans, studies find.
Without objection.
Next one is from Cato Institute with similar conclusions, illegal immigration and crime in Texas.
Without objection.
And the last one is from the National Institute of Justice, entitled Undocumented Immigrant Offending Rate Lower Than U.S.-Born Citizen Rate.
Without objection, I thank the gentlelady from Washington. I'll recognize the gentleman from North Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just because your news puts it out there doesn't make it true,
Mr. Rogers, you
whore.
touched on something,
You know this.
Representative McClintock was speaking, and you had mentioned in your written testimony that caught my attention that the 2022 Dobbs decision at the Supreme Court set the framework for overturning Plyler versus Doe. And I just want to give you a few moments to kind of dive a little deeper into that and explain why you believe this to be the case.
Sure, thank you. The Dobbs decision set up 5 standards for whether a prior precedent should be overruled. The first one was whether the nature of the court's error, and if it's an egregious error, that weighs in favor of overruling. As I talked about, the court applied the wrong standards for the Equal Protection Clause. The second is the quality of the reasoning, and if you actually read the decision, it's very bare. It just basically says this is good policy. It doesn't give actual legal reasoning. The third is workability. It's whether it's a standard that can be applied by courts, and the standard the court invented, no one's been able to define or understand what it means. The fourth is its effect on other areas of law, and as we've heard, this decision has affected how states can implement their own education policy. We heard some testimony about how states haven't adopted Plyler-type laws like the one that issued in Texas because it's good policy. If it were good policy, then we wouldn't hear people concerned about Plyler being overruled. But the fact that they're so concerned means they know that states would adopt it if they didn't have this restriction. And then the last is reliance interest, whether companies or whether individuals have financial reliance interests on the rule. And there's no financial interest of the type of like contract interest here. So all five weigh against Plyler being upheld.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And Mr. O'Brien, can you explain how the Supreme Court in Plyler acted like the legislative branch rather than the judicial branch?
Sure. The function of a court is to apply the law as written. In this particular case, there really was no constitutional issue before the court based on the court's own reasoning. The court found that illegal aliens was not a suspect class. The court also found that a free public education is not a fundamental right. Therefore, it's arguable that there was no constitutional issue whatsoever in front of the court because, by definition, if illegal aliens is not a suspect class, then the state of Texas was not discriminating against anyone. But for whatever reason, the Supreme Court granted writ of certiorari and went forward with it, and then they completely ignored the relevant standards, and they ruled entirely on policy grounds. Now, the consideration of policy under our constitutional framework belongs to the Congress of the United States. It does not belong to the courts. The courts apply the law based on canons of statutory construction and other legal principles. But policy calls belong to Congress.
So you would say the court should not be able to require free education for the children of illegal immigrants?
No, not by any stretch of the imagination. That is a decision that if Congress wished to make, it probably could have, but it in no way fell within the purview of the court.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Rogers, coming back, as I understand, the Plyler versus Doe, the state of Texas argued the illegal alien children imposed a burden on the state's education system. The court, in a decision, rejected such a claim.
Politicians
Here we are 4
like
years later,
Shovelface
where there's a
are
lot
part of
more
the
data to underscore
globalists
that
who
point.
want to make
Can you explain the burden that the
citizenship.
massive
Of
influx
course.
of illegal aliens places
Of
on the
course.
state's public education
Because
systems?
she's an anchor baby.
As we've heard, they impose a tremendous burden because most of them arrive not speaking English. They require special services.
And
which
she
means that
wants her
American
people
citizen
over
children
here
can't get
to
those
this
services because there's
country.
limited resources. An interesting example of the policy
Her people
decision
must
about this
control
is,
this country, not
if
yours.
a temporary immigrant arrives
Hers.
with a tourist visa, they're actually required to pay tuition. Under federal law right now, they have to pay tuition for their kids, yet illegal aliens who are also here temporarily don't have to, which is tremendously unfair that they're treated differently and given special privileges.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I yield my time.
I think, gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Rogers, in your last 30 seconds here, it is your considered judgment that there are states right now taking actions to start pass laws to say that they should not have to fund education for illegal alien children, and that this should move its way through the courts, and that the court should take it up. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thanks, Mr. Rogers. I will now recognize the gentlelady from Vermont for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a former middle school teacher, which I always say is perfect preparation for this place. I know the incredible value and importance of public education, and to say that the children of immigrants are not entitled to learn and to grow in public schools is an extreme position. We're talking about children. This is a fundamental question of decency. And
I
who
mean,
we
you
claim
were
to be
saying
as
to
Americans.
cut
I wanna
children's
echo
dicks
the
off not
comments
too
of
long
my
ago.
colleague
I don't
Jai
think
Paul,
you
who
need to
said
be
there are no
talking
illegal
about
children.
children.
And we should not be referring to them in this way. And how has this administration treated children and families so far? Well, it has cut early childhood education. It has cut children's health care. It has cut child nutrition programs. It has cut infant formula inspection. It has cut research for vaccines. They even eliminated funding for children's television programs on PBS. This is not an administration that is looking out for children and families. As I said, I'm a former teacher and I'm a parent. And I know how hard it is being a kid and a teen
And
in this
goddamn
country
us all
today.
for that,
Our kids
because
carry the
holy
real
shit, you're
fear
retarded.
of gun violence in their schools. They carry the real anxiety
We let
of
you
unaddressed
fucking-
climate change. They have to navigate social media landscapes that
procreate.
exacerbate the crisis of loneliness and disconnection. And for the
Explain
children of
yourself,
immigrants, they have to deal with all
humanity.
this on top of the fear that they are experiencing right now as there are targeted raids happening in communities across this country. And just last week in Vermont, masked agents decided to create chaos and a dangerous situation near 2 schools. And I heard from parents about how frightened they were to drop their kids off at school and to pick them up at the end of the day. The actions cause fear and concern among this community in Vermont, and that kind of anxiety is going to live with those children and these families for a lifetime. Mr.
So which one of these illegal immigrants that you're sitting here praising do you want to wipe your ass all the fucking time then, right? Because, I mean, that's what you were saying. You said if we don't let these people into this country, we're not going to have enough people to wipe our asses. So, which one's wiping your ass? Just shut the fuck up, sit the fuck down.
Saenz, can you describe the level of fear and anxiety affecting immigrant communities in the U.S. today?
It's extreme, and it's extreme because of what you have described, but it starts with the undifferentiated immigration enforcement that is happening across the country, targeted at certain states, but across the country, and accomplished through masked agents who do not wear identification that they're law enforcement at all. This is not what kids have been taught should occur in this country. So it occasions great anxiety, and studies have begun to document higher degrees of absenteeism because of it. But you add to it the challenges that you've also outlined. When you take away adequate nutrition, you take away adequate healthcare, you take away adequate housing, then those are the things that kids have anxiety about. Is my family gonna have a place to stay tomorrow night? Am I gonna get a meal tonight? Am I going to get the healthcare that I need? On top of that, if they actually have a healthcare need that they're not getting, they'll be absent from school. But all the kids who are in school are preoccupied by that kind of consideration, and it leads to their inability to concentrate, as I'm sure you saw.
Oh, I know.
Times, for all kinds of reasons in middle school, but this just adds to it, and it makes them ill-equipped to really take advantage of the education while they're sitting in the classroom. So all of it accumulates.
And I want to make sure I highlight something here. It's not just immigrant children. It is any family that is a family of color in this administration, because we have seen that ICE enforcement is concentrating on people who have a different color of the skin and a different accent. They have widened the search. It's creating lots of harm in our communities.
It was a vaccine, and oh my God, Orange Man did something.
Immigrant status, and that if it can be used as a means
These
to
retards
deny
will never stop, and
immigrant
you know
children
it.
of an education, where does this end? What is the logical conclusion for this in terms of equal access to public, to public education? Where will it end? What other groups will be excluded from this?
Well, you have to assume that the theory that there's no rational basis that would strike down the Texas law means that there is no rational basis standard to strike down excluding disabled kids from school. They're also expensive. Their education is more expensive. So you can imagine that they would be the next target. And beyond that, you can single out any group of students because education is not a fundamental right. And under the theory being put forward today, there would be no
Education
basis
is not
to
a
challenge
fundamental
any
right.
decision on equal protection grounds that would exclude any group of students. So you can imagine a society split between...
When did education become a fundamental right? Well, when did it change from life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to life, liberty, and the pursuit of knowledge? When did that become a fundamental right? Because if it's a fundamental right, explain to me why our children are so goddamn retarded. Other than the fact that you're a failure of a human fucking being and you can't raise your children to be upstanding members of society because, well, you're a piece of shit too. Explain to me where it says in the Constitution that everybody needs to be educated. Explain to me where God said everybody needs to be educated. Give me a fundamental fucking right where anywhere where it's written down that your ass needs to be educated. Because if that's true, we're all breaking that shit, ain't we, fuck ass? We got too many retards running around as it is, but yeah, you have a fundamental right to be educated. Oh, if that were a thing, wouldn't we mandatorily make sure that every fucking citizen, every person that is here in this country, not only goes through the educational system, but fucking learns? So tell me why our children can't read at grade level. Oh yeah, that was COVID. Yet you were for the fucking lockdowns. I guarantee your faggot ass was for the lockdowns. You did it to children. And now you're sitting here saying, oh, everybody else's children, except for the ones that I fucked over, everybody else's children should be able to be in our fucking system simply because you should pay for it. I mean, fuck, we fucked over our young. They're too goddamn retarded to be called human beings. Nobody can read, write, speak at grade level. COVID fucked everything up for all the young kids. These motherfuckers are now growing up without a sense of looking at somebody in the mouth and actually understanding that, hey, there are social cues that happen in a person's body, which is a sign of autism. Congratulations. You have given children autism. It's not from the vaccines. It's because of masks and the fucking stupidity of human beings. I know that's bullshit, but fun to say all the less.
Those who are allowed to receive a free public education and a large and growing group that are denied that opportunity.
I agree with you. And I stand with students. I stand with their families. I stand against the fear that is being created. And if we want a better world,
then stop
which
creating
I think we all
it.
do. I think we can come together on that on this committee. Then we have to support and protect young people in this country, not attack them. Thank you so much, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman from Vermont. Before I recognize my friend from Texas, I have a couple of unanimous consent requests. Ask unanimous consent to put in the record an article by FAIR demonstrating the data showing illegal aliens have higher crime rates without objection. A CIS report showing misuse of Texas data understates illegal immigrant criminality. without objection. I would also put in a report by FAIR showing that there were approximately, respectfully, 16,000 illegal aliens in Vermont compared to 2.7 million illegal aliens in the state of Texas, in a report demonstrating state-by-state data. And with that, I would recognize my friend from Texas, Mr. Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you
Bitch,
for
we
holding
got
this hearing
more
and
than
for,
you do.
fighting
Just
so
so you
hard
can
against,
shut the fuck up
destructive
about
mass
your
migration.
fucking
And thank you for the witnesses for
your
taking the
stats.
time to be here. Mr. Sands, if somebody crosses the border illegally, what should happen to them?
Federal law indicates that there are steps that can be taken to remove them. Now, that can happen at the border,
So they should
or
be
it can
deported.
happen when they are integrated into society. There are protections once you're integrated into society, especially
But
depending
if
on
they're
how long.
if we find them crossing into the country illegally, they should be deported. To put it simply, is that right?
If someone does not have a right to enter, yes, there is a right under federal law to interdict them and prevent them from entering.
Right.
That's been a basic element of immigration law for a very long time.
I agree.
Including during Plyler.
I agree. Do you believe that American tax dollars should be used to rehabilitate criminal and illegal aliens within our own borders?
I believe it's in our own interest to rehabilitate anybody who commits a crime.
Including criminal and illegal
If it
aliens who
happens
never should
within our
have been here.
borders, if it happens within our borders, it's to the benefit of all of us to rehabilitate them. Rehabilitation of those
What?
convicted
How many
criminals is
criminal-
not for their own benefit, it's for the benefit of society.
How many criminal and illegal aliens should we rehabilitate?
What the fucking
Again,
stupid
anyone who
retard
commits a crime
shit are
and is
you
convicted of a crime
speaking?
Should be rehabilitated
there's no
for the
limit.
benefit of the entire
So an illegal alien comes into our
society.
country, murders or rapes somebody, we ought to rehabilitate them, is your view. And there's no limit to the number of illegal alien criminals we should rehabilitate? Is that your testimony?
I wasn't asked to testify about that, Congressman. I asked to testify
I'm
about
just clarifying
Plyler.
your
I'm not sure what this has to
position.
do with
I'm clarifying
Plyler.
your position, which you just
I
attempted
think
to
my
lay out.
position is quite clear. Thank
Okay,
you.
how much money should we spend on rehabilitating criminal and illegal aliens?
We should spend as much money as necessary
Zero.
to rehabilitate anyone who is convicted of crime in this country. Again,
As much
this
as-
let me just note, Congressman, it has nothing to do with Plyler versus Doe.
No, we're
These are
getting
children.
there.
These
We're
are
getting
children.
there.
And with
We
an
should-
education,
we-
they are
sir,
far
we're-
less
we're
likely
getting there, and
to
you're here
ever
answer my
commit a crime.
questions, actually. Couldn't we just secure the border and deport illegal aliens as opposed to rehabilitating them on our own tax dollars?
So that's too facile, Congressman, and I think you should understand that. The simple fact is society benefits from rehabilitation. It's not a gift to anyone
It's
who's
too
convicted of
fast to
crime.
kick people out of the country who don't
Do you believe
belong
there should be
here.
a strict wall of separation
What?
between local law enforcement and immigration officials?
Do I believe there should be such a law? Yes, I do.
That there should be a strict wall, to be clear. A strict wall of separation.
All
between local law
all laws are strict. I'm not aware of Congress or any legislature passing a lenient law.
It's wall,
versus a strict law.
W-A-L-L.
So
A strict
law.
wall, W-A-L-L.
Oh, wall. I'm
Yes,
sorry, I thought
sir.
you said law.
No.
I apologize.
A strict
So, no,
wall
I-
of separation
I think a
between
wall would be incredibly ridiculous, frankly.
A wall of separation between local law enforcement and immigration
Oh, a
officials.
wall of separation. Okay, yes, Congressman, yes. Again, I do believe there should be a law of separation, and if you want to describe that law metaphorically
saying
as
that-
a wall,
Okay.
I would accept that.
Okay, I was actually using your words where you said there should be a strict wall of no cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. That's something that you'd said in an interview with NPR in November of 2016. So police
So
arrest.
I've just acknowledged that.
Right.
So
So
not,
if
not
police
sure why
arrest
you're
and-
putting myself to myself. I'm sure that
I'm
interview
asking,
was not about
I'm the one
Plyler.
asking questions here, not you. If police arrest an illegal alien for breaking into somebody's home in the middle of the night, should they turn that illegal alien over to immigration officials?
So Plyler versus Doe guarantees an education,
just a yes
and
or no
as a result, that means that those kids who receive that education are
You
far
don't
less
think
likely
that
to break into
some-
anyone's home, Congressman.
But I'm asking, let's say they do. Should they be turned over to immigration officials? It's just a
No,
yes or no question.
no, they should be put through the criminal
They should be
law
put through
system
their-
that we have.
What about after serving, let's say they're convicted and they serve a sentence. And
Bury
it's
me,
a criminal
Jim.
and legal alien, they broke into somebody's home, they're convicted, they serve let's say a 5-year sentence. Instead of releasing them onto the street,
If you moved your family into another country without going through legal process, would you expect to get education, food, and healthcare for free for your family? Fuck no. I expect them to find out where the fuck I am and remove me from their country. I'm not supposed to be there, right? As far as I know, we are the only country with lefts thinking we should give all illegals free care. No. Look at the UK. The UK has already done the shit that they're arguing about here. Look what's happened to them. We're not the only ones. We were the last ones. All these countries that have let this happen within their fucking borders are the ones that are hurting. And the ones where fraud is running rampant. The shit is getting out of control. The people are rioting all over the fucking place because, well, you let them in, you let them kill us, and then all of a sudden there's no recourse for any of that shit. But yet if I defend myself, I go to prison for it. What the fuck is happening? This is happening in a lot of other fucking countries. We were the last ones, and it's only because of our system that fucking does not allow this shit. And the only reason we're arguing about it now instead of, 2 fucking years ago? The only reason we're arguing about it now instead of 2 fucking years ago is because our system is designed to move slowly, which infuriates but saves at the very same fucking time. Because if we just, well, Congress needs to act now. They vote immediately. Now some random fucking bill becomes a goddamn law. Just off the basis of somebody's pussy bleeding all over the place about something? I don't want that for my country. I'm sorry. Sure as fuck don't. But we are not the only country that does that. We are the last country that is fighting for it to happen. Everybody else has just let it happen. Look at Canada. Look at the UK. Look at France. Look at England. Let's see, where else is this shit happening? Whether there was some shit in Ireland, there was some shit in of course Scotland had some shit going on for a minute. Wasn't there? No, Switzerland didn't. Switzerland didn't because their citizens have guns. But yeah, Jesus, wasn't there a story that like boatloads of immigrants were coming through Morocco or some shit like that? And yeah, they were almost trying to kill them before they even landed. Oh shit, what was it? That was Spain, I think. I think that was Spain. These countries, look at Australia. Australia did the same thing. They were incredibly authoritarian with their fucking lockdowns. Look at them now. They're screaming about the same thing. You got all these people coming in here, and you want to be upset about us calling them aboriginals, but yet you got illegals coming in here, raping, killing, plundering, and somehow you think it's okay simply because why? We're the last ones that are fighting. Every other country just went quick. They let it happen. It went quick. And here we are 2 years after this whole damn thing about these judges putting out these orders and the Kilmar shit and all that. Here we are damn near 2 years fucking into that. And we're just now getting started about this. That's why. Our system is designed to move slowly because it does save us from bullshit like this. But it's infuriating as fuck because they get nothing goddamn accomplished ever.
Should local law enforcement or prison officials
Many
really give them
criminals
over
will never
to
be rehabilitated no matter how much the system tries. No,
like that, you're putting it in a
they'll
context
just
of
go
a
in and
single
out.
Instance.
No, it's very clear that your answer is
because
no.
they get relying on
no,
that.
that's not clear, sir. That's not clear, sir. Please don't put words in my mouth. You have my words from NPR, and what I say here, you don't need to put words in my mouth.
American taxpayers pay for Medicaid for illegal aliens?
In many circumstances, yes.
They should.
Not just American taxpayers, but immigrant taxpayers also pay taxes as well. As you know, sir, there is no exception for tax paying based on immigration status.
I'm the one who's asking questions here. Should American taxpayers pay for Social Security for illegal aliens? It's a yes or no question. I think the answer is no.
It's not a yes or no question. It doesn't happen. We don't provide Social Security benefits.
Are you serious?
I wasn't aware that was a topic of today's
I don't think that should happen, and I'm asking you if you think it should happen. The last question. The witness may answer the question.
I don't believe that that's a question when it doesn't happen. It's misleading to suggest it does. No one who's undocumented
It's a really basic
receives
question,
Social
and you don't want to
Security.
answer it because you've got a crazy radical open board.
If you didn't eat breakfast yesterday, how would you have felt? It's the same thing. It's an abstract reasoning that this dude is either trying so hard to avoid or too goddamn stupid to understand. If you didn't eat breakfast yesterday, how would you have felt? If you can't answer, yeah, I'd probably feel hungry, irritable, probably a little bit pissy. You can't say something like that, then you don't have the ability of abstract reasoning to say, yeah, if I didn't do something like this, then this wouldn't have happened. If I didn't do this, then this outcome could have happened, or this outcome would have happened. If you can't fucking do that, there is a serious question about cognitive ability. Now, I think this dude is actually trying to wiggle his way out of that, but it's telling that you're just going to sit there and, oh my God, you're going to catch me. I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Orders agenda that we can all see. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the gentleman from Texas for his questions, and I'll now recognize the ranking member for use of your request.
Yes, thank you. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article written by Alexandra Villarreal, Published by The Guardian, January 23rd, 26th. There are kids not going to school. Fear of ICE is keeping children from classes in Connecticut.
Without objection.
Also ask unanimous consent to enter in the record an article written by Bree Hatch and published by Chalkbeat, Tennessee on October 28th, 2025, titled, "In Increasingly Hispanic Memphis Schools, Immigration Enforcement Surge Brings Fear and Absence."
Without objection.
Ask unanimous consent to enter in the record an article written by Kate Payne, Bianca Vasquez Tonis, and Gisela Salmon, published by NBC News, November 17, 2025, entitled, "Immigrant Student Enrollment is Dwindling at Schools Across the U.S. Amid Immigration."
Without objection.
Ask unanimous consent to enter in the record an article written by Justine McDaniel and
So you're just
Louisa Paul,
entering
published by the
articles
Washington
into the
Post,
record that,
2025, titled,
that are
"In Cities
saying
Targeted
what
by
we're
ICE and
wanting
Justice
is
and
working.
District Follow."
Good job.
CQC to enter into the
Good
record
job,
an
you
article written by
fucking
Daniela Silva
retard.
and Natasha Korecki, published by NBC News on October 14, 2025, entitled, "Chicago Teachers Say Immigration Enforcement Near Schools is Scaring Kids
Without
in
objection.
Class." Finally, I ask unanimous consent to enter in the record an article written by Mara Klecker and Anthony Lonetree, published by the Minnesota Star Tribune, January 15, 2026, titled, "Attendance Drops at Minnesota Schools as Federal Immigration Enforcement Intensified."
Without objection.
Thank you.
I'll now recognize the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I just have to say that many of us travel around the world, and in my travels, I
Come
remain
love her
in awe
dove.
at how educated so many children are in other countries. They are bilingual, they are trilingual, they are culturally proficient and aware. It is amazing. And it is so disturbing that it seems like my Republican colleagues in this committee are interested in A, dehumanizing other children, and B, advocating for our children to be unprepared for this world. At one point, you know, the languages that folks were hearing in the schools were Welsh, Irish, Polish, German, Italian. And now we want to shift that to children of color as we
What up, Spud? And there ain't no fucking way. There once was a time in this country where we did not speak the same language. And now they want people of color not to speak the same language again. I swear to fucking God, this is going to be retarded. This may give me a stupidity aneurysm. This bitch is the... She is quickly becoming one of the dumbest sons of bitches I have ever heard in a fucking committee hearing. She is a clown. She is a fucking clown. She will sit around while others are talking. Yep. What about it? Being a fucking ringleader, she is a goddamn clown of a human fucking being. Literally. The mental retardation in this bitch keeps her literally about a 10-year-old fucking level. And yet she sits in the halls of Congress making the laws to tell you how to live your fucking life.
continue to find ways to isolate ourselves and to humanize children. So, Mr. Science, folks do like to talk about the money, so let's get into the money. There was a FWD report called The Power of Pilar that estimates that adult Californians who benefited from Pilar have contributed $655 billion in combined past and future GDP over their lifetime. So can you quickly walk the...
And how much have they taken from that? Because I guarantee you it's over that, what, 650 billion or whatever the fuck number you quoted. I guarantee you they have taken more than they have put in. Why don't you ever talk about that? Oh, it would ruin your whole fucking thought process, right? It doesn't matter if I paid $5 million into the federal government and if I took out $45 million in return, does it? It makes no fucking sense. But yet here we are being retarded about it along the goddamn way. The pocket change, motherfuckers. The pocket change that they give us. Don't forget about the pocket change. Meanwhile, they're taking out $1,000, $5,000, $6,000 goddamn checks every fucking month, paid for by our federal government just for them to exist. Holy fucking shit.
...committee through what that number looks like on the ground.
What it means is we have contributing members of our society who are doctors, who are teachers. Many formerly undocumented students end up in the education profession, in the healthcare profession. They are making contributions in business, in some cases in C-suite.
How do they do that?
It means that we have the opportunity
How do they do that?
Investment in education into the GDP that report you cited talks about.
Right, and the report actually shows a net fiscal gain of $145 billion.
Many undocumented says, how the fuck do you get into that? You might have been educated here from our system, it doesn't fucking matter. But if you're an undocumented fucking immigrant, how the fuck do you get into healthcare? What the fuck are we talking about? Oh, we talking about maybe hospice fucking care? Well, goddamn, look at California for that shit. What do you mean the healthcare system? You mean to tell me we got undocumented fucking immigrants putting shit into my fucking veins trying to save my life at a goddamn hospital? Because that scares the ever-living fuck out of me, faggot. What? It's bad enough I have to worry about the fucking political leaning of the fucking nurses in my goddamn local hospital just because you motherfuckers are sitting there saying, "Hey, I'm a healthcare professional. I'm just gonna put something in this syringe here for all these white people, for all these Trump supporters, for all this." You got thousands of fucking videos of that running the fuck around. It's bad enough now. Now you're sitting there, oh my God, this person might be an undocumented. They may think I want to get them the fuck out this country. And I do. So what the fuck? They're just going to put something in my fucking veins and I don't even fucking know? They just get some odd hair up their ass. And oh my God, here we go. What the fuck are we doing? Seriously, what the fuck are we doing as a country? There's no way as hell we can take ourselves... I can't believe I'm saying it now too. There's no way in hell we can take ourselves fucking seriously as a goddamn country when you're letting undocumented fucking citizens do whatever. See, there I go. When you let undocumented illegal aliens come into this country and do and say and take from everything that the American people get and then say the American people have to pay for it because the only thing they bring in is sales tax because they damn sure don't have to pay federal fucking tax. Let's be fucking honest. Immigrants don't pay that shit. Okay, they actually do now. It's just at a lower fucking cost. There is a lower fucking tax burden that they have than you. Holy fucking shit. Here we go. What they're talking about is the billions they bring in, the sales tax, the property tax. Yeah, they can buy property. That's what they're talking about, taxing them. But yet, hey. Remember when income tax was actually 0 for illegals? Yeah, but they still have half your income tax burden. Figure that shit out.
$1 million in California alone. So that's income tax revenue over lifetimes minus the cost of educating those children. So for those who claim we can't afford Pilar, how do you respond to the argument that we actually can't afford to lose it?
I think it's absolutely clear because we'll have immediate repercussions in our public schools, really seeing a further diminution in their ability to deliver an education to anyone. But in the long term, we'll lose all of that additional revenue and economic contributions and the things that you can't even quantify in money. The innovations, the inventions, the new ideas, the inspired leadership provided by formerly undocumented immigrants in our society.
And sort of like connectivity to humanity. So if Pilar is overturned, California
we have
stands
to be
lose
humane.
$99 billion.
We have to be humane by letting
output,
everybody into this fucking country to suckle off the tit of the American taxpayer.
Trajectory look like nationally
Holy fuck.
in your professional assessment?
Well, you can extend it out further because if Pilar is overturned, a number of states will begin to attempt to deny an education to kids. I ultimately think they would reverse as they see their public schools fall apart because of the exclusion of a certain class of students. But over time, you're talking about trillions of contributions to the economy, including to revenue, from a population that is permanently going to be in this country. So the contrast is a permanent underclass incapable of providing any kind of serious contribution to either tax revenues, the economy, or to the many other elements of social connection that we've talked about.
Thank you. And to Mr. O'Brien, your organization advocates for restricting Pilar, but the record here shows that the core argument you make that educating these children is a cost to taxpayers simply doesn't hold up. The data shows...
So these undocumented citizens are going to be here permanently, no matter fucking what, no matter what you do, they're going to be here. We're going to make sure they're here. So you're just going to have to pay for it any fucking way. Huh. So now we are saying that this invasion at our border will never fucking end. This invasion into our fucking country will never fucking end. Now you are outright saying the invasion will not stop. We will keep coming. Yeah. So you leave no other door open but warfare then, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Tax revenue from undocumented workers alone covers the cost of educating these children more than 9 times over. So am I correct in saying that you believe that the hundreds of billions of dollars in economic contributions from Pilar beneficiaries, including over $600 billion in California alone, were not worth the investment?
I don't believe that those contributions were made. I believe that the data upon which those claims are based is erroneous and that there is a cost imposed by Plyler.
Okay, so you don't like the data when it doesn't say what you want it to say. So I'm going to say with the numbers in
What
the
the fuck are you even trying to talk
and the numbers
about,
that are
bitch?
here. FAIR has argued that educating undocumented children is a cost to taxpayers. The data in front of us shows a net fiscal gain of $145 billion in California, $43 billion in New York, $20 billion in Arizona, $93 billion in Texas, $42 billion in Florida, $21 billion in Washington. So I think, once again, we should be talking about why we cannot afford to lose Tyler, not why it is so important to lose all of these economic gains. And, Mr. Chair, I just want to enter into the record, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the report, forward.us report, The Power of Tyler.
Without objection.
Thank you so much, and I yield back.
Thanks, gentleman from California, and I will now recognize the chairman of the committee, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rogers, what percentage, any idea what percentage of the United States population lives in a sanctuary jurisdiction?
That's a good question. I don't have that numbers, but it's far too high. It should be 0.
Yeah, it should be 0, but it's like 31.5%. 18 cities, 11 states, 3 counties in the District of Columbia. Because these are big blue cities, big blue states, again, almost a third of the population lives in a jurisdiction where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where local left-wing political leaders tell local law enforcement not to work with federal law enforcement when it comes to enforcing federal law. Is that your understanding of sanctuary jurisdiction?
Correct, yeah.
And is that literally one of the dumbest things you've ever heard?
Yes, and it's against federal law as well because it's
no kidding. But in a third of the country that goes on. And last year alone, we just marked this bill up 2 weeks ago. Last year alone, 2025, 17,864 times, ICE would file a detainer with a local jail, local detention center, where there's a person who's in the country illegally and been charged with a crime, and ICE would send a detainer notice saying, hey, if you're gonna let this guy out, give us a call. And 17,864 times in 2025, local law enforcement, because left-wing politicians told them to, would not work with federal law enforcement and many times release these people to the streets. Again, I'd ask you, is that a crazy policy or what?
It's absolutely crazy.
Want to start losing their houses, properties, investment, etc. They will change their tune. The alternative is not a pretty
Then
option.
went out and caused harm, did some
You're
crime
right.
against some other American, maybe some other migrant, who knows, but committed some crime after they've been released when they could have been turned over to federal law enforcement.
It's not surprising. It's totally predictable, and it's a tragedy for each of those people.
Totally predictable. Mr. Sines, would you say that's a good policy or a bad policy?
Which policy?
Policy, sanctuary jurisdiction.
It's a good policy.
It's a good policy to let 17,000 people out, potentially 17,000 people not on a detainer, and let some of those people released to the streets who had already been charged with the crime, and then they commit another crime, and you're saying that's a good policy.
That's your characterization of
No,
how that
that's
works
the
out.
facts.
It's an inaccurate. It's an inaccurate
That is the
characterization.
facts.
No, I'm sorry. It's inaccurate.
Oh, okay, so tell me what's
If you
inaccurate.
wanna have accurate-
31% of the population lives in a sanctuary jurisdiction. Is that inaccurate?
I don't know. I'll take your word on that. I
Okay,
don't know.
so that's not inaccurate. What about this? 17,864 times a detainer was not honored last year by local law enforcement when ICE issued a detainer.
Again, I have no idea, Congressman. I came here to talk about Plyler versus Doe, and I can absolutely guarantee you there has never been a detainer issued against a student enrolled in public education as a result of Plyler.
I'll get to the student
But the hearing
issue.
is about Plyler.
The
So I don't have an
hearing is
answer to
about-
your question
the hearing is
about whether the
Plyler
data
and
you
about
have is
immigration
accurate
policy,
related
and
to
about
something
immigration
completely
policy, and I'll get to
unrelated.
that.
Let's suspend. It is the gentleman's time to ask the questions. The witness can respond to the questions, but we're not going to talk over each other.
Mr. O'Brien, to get to Plyler, there's a cost associated with this, right? With this
Yes,
decision.
there is.
Significant. I mean, I think the court said way back in 1982, the number of illegal aliens in public schools was small, and there was, quote, no evidence in record suggesting that illegal entrants impose any significant burden on the state's economy. That was the ruling back in 82, but things have changed a little bit since then, haven't they?
They've changed drastically, and the estimated combined cost to the taxpayers, federal, state, and local, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 billion with a B.
And it was particularly exacerbated the previous 4 years in the last administration. Is that accurate?
Yes, by a significant margin.
8 to 10 million people coming into the country in a 4-year time frame. Many of those were students. I remember the Biden administration lost track of hundreds of thousands of those students. Is that right?
About 300,000, that's correct.
Yeah. So there's certainly a cost associated with that. That's what this hearing's about as well. Yeah. Let me ask one other question here, and then maybe I'll yield a few seconds to my good friend from Texas. Is Thomas Paine an undocumented immigrant or a founding father, Mr. Rogers? I'm just curious.
He's a founding father. He's not an undocumented immigrant.
Yeah. What, Mr. O'Brien?
He was a citizen of the UK who went to another territory of the UK, so it was like moving from Massachusetts to New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah. Ms. Drogan, I just was curious if you thought he was an undocumented immigrant or a founding father.
He's a founding father.
And what about you, Mr. Sines? What are you going to say to that question?
I'd say the terms don't apply back when Tom Paine was alive. So it is true, he was undocumented. But
Oh,
that
is
really
it?
wasn't a category
Was
of
he-
any
was he a
concern
founding- was he a
in the
founding
18th
father?
century. He's both.
Come on,
a founding father.
come on, it's common sense, pun intended. Was he a founding father? Of
course he was.
All right, God bless you. I will yield. Well, sorry, Mr. Gill, I ran out of time.
I appreciate the chairman. I will now recognize the ranking member for UC request.
Mr. Chairman, don't leave yet. I have a question for you. If you
Mr. Gold, hold on. I'm going to recognize the ranking member for UC.
I can hold the UC.
And Mr. Goldman, I do have to do an interview. I was like, I do.
You know,
Make it quick, make it
I
quick.
have one question for you.
Yes, let's hear it.
Of the 17,000 and however many.
864.
Yep. How many of those people had a criminal conviction and completed their sentence?
I don't know that number. I know there was a detainer filed at the local detention center or jail, and it was not honored. And some of those individuals were released, and we know some of them committed crimes.
Right. And the problem, you can go, that's fine. But the problem with you constantly making this argument about sanctuary cities is that these are charged defendants. And as President Trump knows very well, we live in a country that has due process, where you are innocent until proven guilty. And if the grounds for which an individual is to be deported is based on that criminal charge, we do not deport people based on charges. We deport people based on convictions. And so if you want to talk about the sanctuary laws, let's talk about what the issues that you are raising are. And Mr. Rogers, Mr. Jordan asked you whether or not the sanctuary laws prohibit
Where are
state
you
or
trying to
local
go with
law
this,
enforcement from
Fagman?
cooperating with federal law enforcement. The problem is these are criminal law enforcement agencies and the state and local level, and immigration is civil law enforcement. So we can imagine a scenario, of course, where the civil immigration enforcement completely overwhelms all of the resources of the local police and the local criminal law enforcement. That is the reason why sanctuary city laws apply, is that so the police can actually focus on crime, not on federal civil immigration. But as Mr. Sion says, we are here to talk about children that this administration continues to attack.
Oh my
This
God.
administration has increased the fees for any unaccompanied child to actually apply for a visa. Where is that unaccompanied child supposed to get money from? This administration has canceled contracts for legal representation for children. This administration has consistently, and my Republicans have consistently attacked children who may be transgender and affect no one else.
Oh my God.
This administration is waging
Oh
a
my
war on
God.
children. Leave children alone.
Well, then leave them
And
the
bigger
fuck
point
alone,
is
faggots.
what you
Stop
haven't
trying to cut
touched
off
on
their
is
dicks.
all the expenses that these undocumented children take up in their public education. Well, Mr. McClintock says they're benefiting from taxpayer benefits. Well, guess what? Undocumented immigrants are taxpayers. In fact, the amount of money that we get from taxes paid by undocumented immigrants is 9 times as much money as is paid on their education. And in fact, studies show that $633 billion in local and state tax revenues exceed whatever the education costs are. It increases our GDP by nearly $3 trillion. Why don't we stop terrorizing immigrant communities, shooting Americans, ripping Americans out of cars, arresting people at courthouses who are trying to
Well,
lawfully
stop
apply
that
for
when your
asylum?
ass is held for
Why don't
fucking
we have
treason.
a bill and a hearing on that, rather than continue to attack children who are brought here without any ability to make the decision themselves? And yet you want them to what? Stay home, sit at home when their parents decide to come here? Rather than get an education, contribute to our society, which the overwhelming majority do. Yes, I'm sure you can pick out 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 people who are released and commit a crime. But that shouldn't happen. And if they do commit a crime, they should be deported. I disagree with Mr. Sions on that. But that's not what is happening here. So just stop attacking children. I yield back.
Recognize the ranking member for unanimous consent request.
Then stop trying to mutilate
I would,
children.
Introduce an article published
I
by
swear
the
to
19th,
fucking God, that dude needs to be.
dated January 6, 2026. 5 years after January 6, dozens of
He needs to
pardoned
be a public
insurrectionists have been
example.
arrested again.
Without objection.
Also have a statement of Professor Patrick Wolf
This
highlighting
bitch,
how our
too.
founding fathers stressed the importance of educating immigrant children.
Holy shit.
Patrick Wolf, Distinguished Professor of Education Policy and 21st Century Endowed Chair at the University of Arkansas.
Without objection.
The UC request to enter in the record a statement arguing keeping children in school protects public safety, strengthens our economy, and upholds our country's
Without
principles.
objection.
That's Professor Gerard Robinson at the University of Virginia. Another one from NYU, Professor Sofia Rodriguez, that dismantling Plyler would harm children of U.S. citizens and all children in U.S. schools.
Without objection.
Also have unanimous consent to enter into the record statements from the following organizations. All for Ed on behalf of 109 civil rights organizations.
Without objection.
National Immigration Law Center.
Go through the list.
Okay, the Center for Law and Social Policy, the Century Foundation, the National Youth Law Center, the National Education Law Center, and the First Focus on Children, and the AFL-CIO.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlelady. I will now recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin for 5 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Drogan for bringing up one of the great horrors our country was involved in over the last few years, and that is the huge number of sexual assaults which took place by leaving the border open. I went down to the border maybe 7 or 8 times, and I talked to the doctors who interviewed the women, kind of debriefed the women when they got to this country, and the fact that the Biden administration allowed this open border policy, complete with, by the time it was over, it must have been hundreds of thousands of sexual assaults, is really one of the low points in this country's history, and I wish we had more Democrats at the time who were able to look out for the women. I'll also point out that there are bogus studies out there claiming that these illegal immigrants are not committing many crimes. The only way they're able to come up with such a ridiculous conclusion is you look at, we do not keep track of whether legal or illegal or citizens are committing crimes. If I go into a federal prison, which is near my district, and ask how many of the inmates here are illegal immigrants, they would say we have no idea. Same thing if I talk about a county jail. So given that most of these illegals are not classified as illegals when they're in prison, That's how you get this bogus situation. I also, but I'm going to ask Mr. Rogers a question. I did not even know this in response to Mr. Harrison's question. As far as who pays for people's public education, if somebody is a legal immigrant here or an illegal immigrant, do we treat them differently?
Yes, we do. So, for example, if a family were to come on a tourist visa, DHS would let them in for 6 months, and they can often extend for another 6 months. So if a family stayed here for a year under their tourist visas and enrolled their kids in public school, under the law, they would be required to pay the cost of that education here as temporary visitors, whereas the illegal immigrants under Plyler are not.
That's just insane, of course, the idea that we one more time treat people who come here illegally better than
Why
we treat
you
people who come
Marxists
here
everywhere?
legally.
Goldman supports kid
Mrs.
touchers.
I
Yes.
guess I could ask anyone of you
Yes, he does.
Well, I'll start with Ms. Drogan. We
Not
obviously
paying your
have
rent is
way too
illegal.
many illegal immigrants in this country, and we have to do something to discourage just everybody from coming here. What effect does allowing people into our public schools for free have on the temptation to come here illegally?
I think it's a significant temptation, and we hear this all the time. You talked about the mothers that you've met whose children were abused and themselves abused on their journey up here. They are driven by the promise of educating their children. We hear this time and time again. So they are told, if you get here, then your children can be enrolled in the schools. And so that is what we are seeing
I got
occur
an ingrown
all across
hair
the
in
country.
my
But Texas really is where many of them are
What's in
integrating
here?
at first point, and they're finding locations that, and this is why
starting
we
to
talk
get
about the
itchy.
growing. Chairman Roy talked about how you have districts that started with a couple of dozen kids, and they've grown to hundreds. There's communication, and they are bringing their children here to seek out a free public education.
It's interesting. I don't know the answer to this question, but I'll just see it and you want to guess. We have a policy of giving apparently a free education to people who come here illegally. We also have a policy of giving free health care to people coming here illegally. Which is the dumber policy? Which is the one resulting in more people coming here who shouldn't be here? The free health care for all policy, more than the average American gets, or the free education policy? Anyone want to guess, Wiley?
I would say it's probably a toss-up. I did spend 2 years as a consular officer doing visa interviews in Brazil, and I personally saw people brag about how they could get free health care when they stayed here illegally. So it definitely is a draw.
Right. I did hear when I was down talking to the Border Patrol, dialysis treatment for free, time to get my free dialysis, come to America.
We don't have much more to go in this
Next
one.
question, we have
Yeah.
this idea that there's a racial element to what we're doing. Among people who come here naturalized, and every year about 800,000 people are naturalized legal in this country, something like 6 times the number when I was a child. Does any of you have any guess which countries, when it comes to letting people in this country or becoming citizens legally, which country they're from? I'm under the impression that if you look at the 10 countries that send the most new people here, none of them are European nations. The idea that we are a racist country is just a horrible slander against our country, and it makes one wonder about the motivation of people who do it. But thank you very much.
Thank you, gentleman from Wisconsin. Thank you for his questions. And I will now recognize my friend from Missouri, Mr. Ronder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Plyler v. Doe is a clear example of judicial overreach with lasting consequences. What began as a narrow Texas funding law was transformed by the court into a nationwide mandate requiring states to provide free K-12 education to illegal aliens. As Dr. O'Brien and Mr. Rogers testified, this was not a constitutional interpretation. This was judicial legislation. In doing so, the court intruded on Congress's exclusive authority over immigration and imposed significant ongoing costs to taxpayers. When unelected judges create policies of this scale, voters and their elected representatives are left without a meaningful voice in the decisions that directly affect their schools and their children's education. As the Dobbs framework actually offers a clear outline for reconsidering Plyler. As Mr. Rogers pointed out, Plyler fails all 5 Dobbs factors for reconsidering precedent because it was egregiously wrong from the outset. And as Ms. Drogan testified, Plyler's downstream effects extend beyond illegal alien students. Schools are forced to operate without critical information about student populations and are unable to collect immigration status data that would inform resource allocation. It's time for Congress to reclaim its constitutional role and end this era of immigration policy dictated by unelected judges. Taxpayers are tired of bearing the financial burden of judicial mandates, and states need to be empowered
buzz from
to
your
allocate
ingrown
resources
hair is better
based
than
on their unique
Goldman.
needs and the needs of all American students. Ms. Drogan, it
that
seems
may
to
be
me
true, though.
ironic that my Democrat colleagues are somehow claiming that Democrats are standing up for these children who enter the country illegally. 300,000 unaccompanied minor children entered this country under the Biden-Harris administration, while Democrats in Congress cheered them on. Many of those kids were lost. In fact, the Biden administration lost at least 85,000 children.
I mean, this is true,
Some of
though.
these children were released to guardians at an address that didn't exist, or dozens of them listed to Uncle Jose at the same address. Many of those kids are undoubtedly being trafficked to this day. Many are probably dead. But what do you say to this? The idea that somehow, the Trump administration or we Republicans in Congress are somehow being cruel to illegal aliens?
It's incredibly cruel to lure children and parents to the United States, to send them through violent situations with coyotes that rape them, harm them, other violence, and then put.
And this goes on. This is undisputed.
This is undisputed.
Women and children are raped by coyotes, and my Democrat colleagues encourage this, and the Biden and Harris administration encouraged this.
Yes, the policies that encourage families to come over here with the promise of a better life, or freebies, if you will, that does encourage them to go through that. And then, of course, as you noted, I think it's the Department of Homeland Security said that there were hundreds of thousands that they could not find.
Yes.
So, yes, this is a huge problem. And I know that a lot of times some want to use feelings over facts. The reality is that facts are being hidden intentionally. As I mentioned in my testimony, the Obama-era administration, the Department of Justice and Education, worked together to send out their Dear Colleague letter, implying, just like they did with disciplinary measures and transgender ideology, that you would be investigated if you did not play our political game. And so, yes, that is what is happening here.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers, I've heard over and over again in this hearing, illegal aliens are taxpayers. Are all illegal aliens taxpayers?
No, obviously, a lot of them are paid under the table and have significant tax.
The first time this ever came to my attention is when I was running for state rep in 2006, and I started knocking on the doors of actually union. I was in a neighborhood that was predominantly union households, and they started asking me, "What are you going to do about illegal immigration?" Because in O'Fallon, Missouri, a low-income housing tax credit-funded project was being staffed by illegal aliens who were working off the books. The O'Fallon Police Department busted dozens working illegally off the books. I don't think we have any idea what the true magnitude of that is.
Correct, we don't, because the studies that talk about benefits cherry-pick the data. Clearly, there's significant costs that aren't being accounted in those studies.
Thank you. I yield back.
I thank Joan from Missouri, and I want to offer my apology to the ranking member. I went out of order, believing that she had already gone, and said it was my fault, and she was gracious in allowing Mr. Honor to continue his questions, and I will now recognize the ranking member for her 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Sands, you mentioned earlier that much of the discussion we've heard today has been based upon a conflation of ideas that all students from immigrant families who require ESL are undocumented in this country. But we know that almost half of foreign-born U.S. residents are in fact citizens. Another 19% are legal permanent residents who could become citizens. Another 5% are here on temporary visas. And half of the remaining, about quarter of foreign-born immigrants living in the U.S. have some legal status, including awaiting a determination of their asylum claims or U visas, temporary protected status, DACA status, humanitarian relief, et cetera. So we're actually talking about a very small...
So about half. Hold on. This half you're talking about. Is that boosted by the same motherfuckers who came here illegally and right as they got caught started screaming asylum? What about those people who have been here illegally and then were told by you motherfuckers to claim asylum and you'll be good to go? What about that? Is that the number? Is that the number you're grabbing, Scanlon?
Number of our total immigrant population.
He was purposely conflating it.
In fact,
Of course.
Undocumented. And when we talk about the children of those folks, it becomes even smaller. As a former school board member, I am concerned about the idea that we're going to put the burden on our school districts of determining immigration status when our federal government has such a hard time determining that, and also the burden of remedial education that would occur if we deny basic education services to children at formative parts of their lives. Can you talk about the impact on a child's life if they are denied an education and what that's going to mean to our communities as well?
Well, first of all, I think it is important to note, as you do, that all of these programs would continue. English learner programs, remedial education programs, all the programs that are being somehow attributed to the undocumented population. Because it is so small, it would have to continue in order for public education to succeed. Indeed, the incremental cost of adding one more English learner to an English learner program is much, much smaller, obviously, than having to create a new program, which is not what's happening. But what happens over the course of a child and then an adult's life who does not get a basic education is they end up illiterate in all likelihood. And the options for those who are illiterate are quite limited. Too often the options are ones that are against the law for many. For others, they will have to, as you mentioned, have to find some way to become literate. So you would have to see some...
Yes, Scanlon needs to be signed up for the shark feeding contest at
a workforce that's even capable of doing the most menial of jobs. The alternative, as you know, is to ensure that every kid has an education and can go on beyond 12th grade if that's their inclination and their talent allows it to make the kinds of contributions that we've seen from so many formerly undocumented immigrants
I'm okay with it.
in our society today.
Thank you. You touched on something that I think we all saw during the COVID crisis, that when schools closed down and kids are not in school, we saw a huge spike in gun violence and community violence that was impacting kids, either because they were unsupervised, not getting an education, or because they had too much time on their hands. Can you talk about what excluding kids from school could do to our communities? And in particular, I'm a little surprised that this pro-crime policy is something our colleagues have expressed interest in.
I had the great honor of representing the plaintiffs in challenging California's Proposition 187, which is the only direct attempt to contradict Plyler in the 44 years since. That was only 12 years after the decision in 1994. And what we found was police chief after police chief after police chief who would testify that what would happen when you have thousands of kids on the street is they are likely become the victims of crime because they're readily available. And too many of them, as they age, would then be fostered into becoming participants in the criminal rings that they were first victimized by. And it would result in a huge increase of crime almost immediately once you have those kids out of school. But as I've said, it multiplies over time because ultimately it's not just the kids who are excluded who choose not to be in school. Their siblings, citizen younger siblings of undocumented older siblings will follow them out of school at some point, many of them. Others are friends. Others are even acquaintances who see, if they don't have to be in school, then why am I here? And that, frankly, will be accelerated by the withdrawal of all of the supports that is happening this year and next, whether that's healthcare, nutrition, or housing. That's going to lead to more kids' inclinations to be out of school. So if you start with eliminating Plyler, it will multiply quickly under the current regime because of that lack of support. A huge spike in crime.
If we accept that the argument that immigration status can be used as a reason to deny public education, where does that logic stop?
Again, it means that you are then allowing local decision makers to decide who they'd like to exclude from school. It's likely to start with those who are somehow different from the norm or are somehow more expensive in someone's views to educate, and it could lead to a serious decrease in eligibility for public education that the Supreme Court noticed in another important case, Brown versus Board of Education, is so critical to preserving our democracy and preserving our ability to thrive as a society.
Thank you. And Mr.
Wait,
Chairman,
what?
I have one last, I hope, unanimous consent request.
Are you trying to be serious with that?
PBS article entitled, "Who are the immigrants who come to the U.S.? Here's the data."
Without objection. And before I start my time, I have a UC request. Insert an article by Laura Reese, the Heritage Foundation. Every state should challenge Plyler v. Doe, time to end free education for illegal alien K-12 students. Without objection. And with that, I'll begin my 5 minutes of questioning. And I would note, Ms. Dorgan, just quickly for you, is child mutilation in the context of transgender surgeries good for children?
Absolutely not.
Is child migration, in which the coyotes are abusing these young girls and children, good for children?
No, it's not.
Did disastrous open borders policies result in children being abused in the migration process?
Absolutely it did.
And this notion of not being in school being somehow a time when children will get in trouble, being in danger, even if you concede that potential reality, is the problem of the not being in school or is the problem being here illegally?
Being here illegally.
Right. Isn't that the condition present? So this whole question here about, well, we're going to be allowing local decision makers to make arbitrary decisions about who can be educated. Are we not talking about that it's not arbitrary? We're just saying there should be American citizens or people who are legally present in the United States, correct?
100%.
So now all of this here, we've been talking about policy. We've heard a lot of my Democratic colleagues, we've heard Democratic witnesses in this hearing and others acknowledge on the record, open without shame, that local law enforcement should not cooperate with federal authorities. We've heard that here today. We've heard that illegal alien children who have committing crimes should not be turned over to ICE for dealing with their possible deportation. We've heard that sanctuary cities for 31% of the population are good. And we've heard that there is no limit that would be accepted for how many people should come to the United States when we have 2.4 billion school-age children around the world. So my question here is, all of that seems to be the policy positions of my Democratic colleagues and those that are testifying on behalf of my Democratic colleagues. But I think the question here at the core of this is a legal question, right? And that I'd like to turn to Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Rogers to close, is that my Democratic colleagues and witnesses have said effectively in an exchange between the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Raskin, the witness, and I'm going to paraphrase, that Plyler didn't change any status. The result of Plyler wasn't to change a legal status, but it does effectively say it would be bad. It would be bad for kids who are here illegally. Isn't this effectively, Mr. O'Brien first, Mr. Rogers, an admission that Plyler should be struck down? That this was effectively a policy choice by the court, not a legal decision baked in or based upon the 14th Amendment. Mr. O'Brien first.
Yes, the court essentially says that in its opinion. It admitted outright that illegal aliens is not a suspect classification and that there is no right to a free public education. Therefore, there shouldn't have been any issue before the court at all.
Mr. Rogers,
right.
Can you extrapolate upon that?
Yeah, it's absolutely a policy judgment. And if judges have concerns about policies in America, they should run for office. But it's not their role to make policies as judges.
Correct, because there's been a lot of policy discussion in this hearing. But the question here is, as I put in the record that the Heritage paper saying, these states should be able to perceive their policies and that Plyler should be struck down, this should be left to the states to decide, or Congress to make policy. And Mr. O'Brien, you referenced, the majority found that the Texas law imposed, quote, a lifetime hardship on children with no responsibility for their immigration status, taking an inestimable toll, and the Texas interest, quote, in the preservation of the state's limited resources for the education of its lawful residents did not outweigh the harm. The court made a policy choice.
Yes,
correct?
100%.
They literally wrote out, in their opinion, a policy choice and preference. They did not root it in the Constitution or the law, as frankly was the standard of the day in that time, right? And we've already gone through, Mr. Rogers, if you acknowledged, in the Dobbs decision, laying out how we go back and review precedent. It is your position, correct, as you stated here, but I want to summarize and close, that you think that the court should review it, that they would have, under the Dobbs framework, the ability to review that precedent, and especially in light of the error that was found in Dobbs' opinion and review of Roe, that we've got a similar legislating from the bench problem, a policy choice that was made by judges to assert in a 5-4 opinion that the people of Texas could not make a decision on their behalf for their schools, for their education, for their taxpayer dollars, on how to deal with the failure of the federal government to secure the border and inundate our schools with people who are in the United States illegally. Do you believe that the court should review it based on what I just described?
Absolutely should review, and it should
he's making a strong argument.
Testimony about all the benefits from Plyler, but it's not a court's role to determine the financial benefits. That's for legislators to weigh, and that's where they should belong, in state legislators and in Congress.
And in closing here, with 7 seconds left, you believe that if brought to the court, to the Supreme Court, if states were to take action, I know Mississippi, Texas, and other states have been taking action to act on their behalf and pass policies, you believe that if taken to the court, that this court would in fact overturn Plyler and side with the states?
I do.
Well, with that, I now have my friend from Texas who has joined us here, and I would recognize Mr. Hunt for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the Biden administration, American students and parents were
All
overwhelmed.
right, this should be the last one.
This is a fact, and we all know it. President Trump took decisive action to prevent illegal aliens from receiving free secondary education, which, by the way, is a very good thing. Now, we must also prevent illegals from accessing any taxpayer benefits, including K-12 education. As someone who was a product of school choice, me, whose parents drove me 1 hour each way, so I get the education that they worked hard for me to actually attain and earn, I understand the importance of this hearing and the need to ensure opportunities are available to all American children who are tax-paying American children and tax-paying American families. Under zero circumstances should illegal aliens receive benefits that American families rightfully deserve. In the 1982 ruling in Pyler versus Doe declared that the 1975 Texas law denying funds to public schools that enrolled illegal aliens was unconstitutional because it caused lifetime hardships on children who are not responsible for their immigration status. But what about those legal citizens in this country that are also being overlooked, specifically in Texas, my home state? During that case, it was argued that only a small number of students were illegal, suggesting this ruling would be insignificant. This decision was flawed then and has become a harmful burden to the American youth today. The situation under Democrat control and what was the border crisis with over 20 million people entering this country, we have no idea who they were, and benefiting from the efforts of hard-working Americans. And as we have discussed ad infinitum today, we are in so much debt that we can't even figure out how to get out of it. And the debt clock gets worse and worse and worse, and we simply, flat out, can't afford it. Somebody has to have the backbone, and somebody has to have the ability to call this out for what it is. Raises a very serious question. What could this money have done for American families? What could this money have done for American students? And as somebody who is a believer in Christ, as somebody who believes in the good of America, as somebody that has fought for this country, as somebody that has risked my life to defend this great nation, I understand the need to want to help others. But oh my gosh, what about our own American citizens that are tax-paying Americans right here, right now, that should be put in first place? That's what this whole America First movement is all about. This is what I fought for. And while I wish we could save the world, unfortunately, this is not going to work. So we must protect ours first, just like any other country in the entire world would. You see, last I checked, I haven't seen any other country giving Americans piles of cash. But yet we are the ones that are shipping our billions of dollars of hard-earned tax-paying dollars to everybody else. And no one wants to help us. My first question is for you, Ms. Drogan. Thank you very much for being here today.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you for your testimony. And as a product of school choice, I want to personally thank you for your ongoing efforts in helping the future of our children. You say that Congress should consider legislation allowing states to collect and share immigration data for educational planning. Can you expand upon this? And in your opinion, what should be done with states that refuse to participate?
Yes, well, as I talked about, the Dear Colleague letter that essentially threatened districts or states for collecting it, that was the implied chilling effect of the letter. And the problem, obviously, there is you have educators, you have educating leaders that are afraid of this. They're afraid of the ramifications all across our state, all across our country, and so they're not collecting this data. And therefore, every time that we hear someone give statistics, whether it's how much they supposedly contribute, it's erroneous because it's not based in facts. We literally don't know, but we can estimate. We can estimate how much this is costing. We can also go back and look at the students, while English second language or emergent bilingual is not a perfect description of students that are likely here illegally. It gives us some sort of idea of what's happening. And what is happening is these students in these districts are causing negative ramifications across the board, whether it's in their classrooms, in their schools, in the entire districts that we are seeing being taken over by the state. And that disrupts all of the education. So it is a crisis to not identify who these students are. We do it with special ed. We even do it with incarcerated parents. It's just common sense to say, who are the kids in our schools? And of course, we're not doing that now. And that creates a huge crisis, both on resources and on funding.
This is an issue of opportunity cost. If we are not helping American students, we're helping illegal children of illegal aliens that shouldn't be here in the first place. It means we're not helping an American student that deserves it. That's right. This is not a difficult concept. It's actually quite easy. No, I'm not a jerk. No, I'm not xenophobic. I believe in ensuring that we educate American citizens first. That's where our resources, it doesn't need to go there. It must go there. Thank you very much. My time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank Senator from Texas. I thank the witnesses for their testimony. This concludes today's hearing. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witnesses or additional materials for the record. And without objection, the hearing is adjourned.
All right. I'm going to spend some time with my wife before we go to the little doctor thing, guys. So I'm going to call it here. We'll be back tonight with a regular show. Do not forget, members only is Sunday or Saturday. That will be the Tulsi Gabbard hearing. And I may bring up another one of these because we got some more we need to listen to. But for right now, I'm going to call it right here. And we will see you all just in about 6 hours or so. Until then, y'all have a good night.
And y'all don't know that I'm a soldier. I always felt like I'm alone. When everybody thinks they know ya. And y'all don't even know I own ya. And now I'm ready taking over. Cause every day I'm getting closer. Just look at everything I'll show ya. Now I'm ready, I'ma blow up.